There's hundreds of FNAF Icebergs on YouTube, but all of them cover the same things, so that's why I made this one different from the rest, featuring things most other icebergs don't, such as unique mysteries, creepypastas, rumors, hoaxes, and much more that no other iceberg videos talk about, combining all of my FNAF Iceberg videos into one giant deep dive for you guys to fall asleep, study, and work to, with new entries spread throughout. So make sure to subscribe if you love Five Nights at Freddy's, and let's get into the most unique ultimate FNAF iceberg. Icebergs, one of YouTube's latest content phenomenons. Now, unless you've been living under a rock like Patrick the Star does in SpongeBob, you should know what an iceberg chart or iceberg explained video is. And by reading the title, you should know what the iceberg video is about. Today, I compiled some of the most obscure and random Five Nights at Freddy's hoaxes and rumors that I could find online. And for the people that don't know how an iceberg chart works, well, here is a 10-second rundown. The top of the chart is very well-known information, and going down, it becomes more and more obscure. But in this case, I also gauged the chart on how scary some of these entries are. So once we start getting to the bottom of them, some of them start to become more obscure and more disturbing. You know, when I see people do icebergs videos, like they take like 2 minutes to explain it, even though it is literally a 5-second thing to explain. I don't understand why people do that, but anyways, I made this chart by compiling a bunch of hoaxes and such from subreddits, forum posts, and etc. So I know that not every single hoax or rumor will be on here, but I did try to find some of the most obscure ones that I believe no one really knew about. But let's get into the video now. Now, I know I said a bunch of this stuff on this iceberg is supposed to be obscure hoaxes and rumors, but for the people that aren't really into FNAF, we're gonna be going over some of the most common and super popular hoaxes and rumors that were very prevalent during the first couple of Five Nights at Freddy's games, just so, you know, some people that aren't that into the know about Five Nights at Freddy's could, well, get some basic hoax information and get a nice base plate. But for the OG fans, these first couple of layers might be very nostalgic for you guys. So let's get into the first layer. Sparky the Dog. Sparky the Dog is a hoax created for Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and it was said that this was the very first Five Nights at Freddy's hoax ever made. People said that there was a very rare chance that you would see this animatronic in the backstage camera, and it would function like a bunch of the other Easter eggs in this game, where there would be a rare chance to see a Easter egg on screen, kind of just like how you would see the Golden Freddy poster on your camera. It would have a very rare chance to appear. Sparky the Dog is the most known and most notably one of the most popular Five Nights at Freddy's hoaxes ever made, as even people that never played the Five Nights at Freddy's games probably know about this. And quick little fun fact too, Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, was originally going to implement a wolf-like animatronic in place of Foxy, so this hoax actually kind of pays homage to that wolf character. Main stage all stare. Now this is referencing this image, and no, this image isn't a hoax. It does exist, but well, it's kind of a rumor. Let me explain. So the people that know about this image knows what this image is and has probably seen it multiple times before, as it was featured in the first Five Nights at Freddy's 1 teaser trailer. And people just thought that this was in the actual game, but guess what? It never was. In the Five Nights at Freddy's community, this is speculated to be one of the main and only Mandela effects in the entire franchise, as people vividly remember seeing the screen during their playthrough of the game, but it was actually never in any of the games. So some people started to speculate that it was only in the mobile ports of the game and that's where they saw it from, but guess what? It wasn't there either. The picture can be found in the files in the game, but was actually never used. It was only seen in the trailer. But anyways, it's a very big rumor and hoax that this was actually in the game when it never was. Phantom Bonnie. Phantom Bonnie is a hoax animatronic that first appeared in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and people thought that this animatronic was actually in the game since there was no Bonnie in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Now, I mean, Springtrap is based off of the Spring Bonnie suit in FNAF, so technically there was Bonnie in the game, it just wasn't the one that we were all used to. But as I said, Phantom Bonnie was never in the game, but it was a very popular hoax for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Shadow Man Cam. This is based off of a popular hoax video for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 when the game first released. It was said that if you looked in the main hallway character for quite some time that you would actually see a silhouette of a Shadow Man on the camera. But the video was just a hoax and garnered a bunch of attention, which made a lot of people think it was real. But in all actuality, this hoax was based off of the puppet screen that you can see. If you let the music box run all the way down till the music starts playing and the puppet leaves the box, you can actually see the puppet hallucination on this camera. So I mean, this hoax is kind of based off a real thing, but the Shadow Man version of it isn't real. Purple Man Jump Scare. This hoax is referencing another YouTube video that got very popular for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The video was about a reported jump scare of the purple guy that you could get in the game, and this was also a very popular hoax at the time that a bunch of people probably know. Now, since people didn't know the importance of purple guy in the series yet, except that he, well, some some children, this character is very ominous and creepy, and people began to make a bunch of hoaxes about him. And this was one, if not the most popular hoax about the purple guy. But in my personal opinion, I think the next hoax on this list was the most popular purple guy hoax ever. So let's get into that one. Purple guy animatronic. Everyone should know what this picture is. Even if you don't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is or never even played the game series, you guys should have seen, or well, at least know this picture. This is the purple guy animatronic. This is one, if not the most popular Five Nights at Freddy's hoax other than Sparky the dog in all of Five Nights at Freddy's existence. Everyone was making videos about this strange animatronic that would appear in your office in the same spot that Golden Freddy or Balloon Boy did. Now obviously it was never true, but this actually started a bunch of mods where you would replace Golden Freddy for the purple guy animatronic, which also helped fuel the myth and legend of this character even more. And I just want to say this hoax terrified me when I was younger. I was so afraid to see this thing in my playthrough that I almost stopped playing the game after I heard about it. I don't know why, I guess it was just very unsettling for me, and it's actually still kind of creepy to this day. Gray Puppet. The Gray Puppet is a hoax from Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that was also based off of another YouTube video. Dang, we got 3 hoaxes in a row that were based off of a YouTube video. I gotta go buy like a lottery ticket or something. Anyways, instead, a very weird phenomenon happened in this video about this hoax. In the video, the audio cue that played during one of the FNAF 2 minigames that say save them plays throughout this video. As the guy is surviving throughout the night, this audio is playing in the background. And after the audio cue was over, the puppet jump scared him, but it was great. Now in the video, it made this whole occurrence very mysterious and very unsettling, as if it were normal to gameplay. And since it seemed like a very real hoax, people believed it. It actually seemed like something that could happen during normal gameplay of FNAF 2. But other than that, there's not much more information about this hoax. It's just a fake YouTube video that got very popular. Freedom. Freedom isn't a hoax, and it's not really that much of a rumor. I mean, I guess you can consider it a rumor, but it was debunked fairly quick. Now what this is referencing is when the FNAF 2 trailer came out and the jump scare from Foxy at the end of it was played, people thought that it actually sounded like Foxy was screaming freedom during the jump scare. Here, I'll play it for you guys. Did you guys hear it? I mean, if you really think about it and really tried to listen for it, maybe you can hear a hint of it, but in my opinion, it's a stretch. People thought these animatronics were trying to escape the pizzeria, and in actuality, that's not the case. People just thought that's what they said, even though it doesn't sound like that one bit. Plus, that's just reaching pretty far, especially when the trailer first came out and like people didn't know much about the game. But talking about reaching far when it comes to something in the FNAF 2 trailer, the next entry we're about to get into is also about something that was, well, a very far stretch in the FNAF 2 trailer. So let's get into it. Mike Kill All. And as I said, this is one of those things that were in the FNAF 2 trailer that people reached very far for. Mike Kill All is referencing the FNAF 2 trailer, and when this trailer came out, as I mentioned, people really started to theorize and think of a bunch of different things for the next Five Nights at Freddy's game. The hype was real, and to try and get some answers behind the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, this rumor was based off of the beginning of the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 trailer, where if you reverse the London Bridge part of the song, you can actually hear the children saying Mike Kill All reversed. And for the people that don't know, you play as Mike Schmidt in the first FNAF game, and people thought that Mike killed all the children and stuffed them into the suits, and that's why they were attacking him in the first game. But as more games released, we realized that wasn't the case and that William Afton acted or unleashed those kids. So as more games came out, this hoax and rumor was laid to rest. FNAF 3 canceled. Now for a short bit here, people thought that FNAF 3 was actually going to be canceled, and that was because of a fake leak that was made online about the game. And well, there was also a very bad fake Five Nights at Freddy's 3 fan game that used a bunch of stolen assets from other games, including previous FNAF games. So because of all of that, it was said that the game was going to be canceled by Scott and that it wasn't going to come out. Now this isn't actually really a rumor and a hoax, at least this part isn't, because this was officially announced by Scott Cawthon that the game wasn't going to be released and it was going to be canceled. But I guess we couldn't consider it a hoax if that was the case, because while it was never canceled, we did get a fake FNAF 3 game, but I guess it really wasn't a hoax back then. Nowadays we obviously know it wasn't a hoax because the game did come out. But no, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 wasn't canceled. Withered Toys. The Withered Toys was a hoax for FNAF 3 in which people saw the first teaser for the box of animatronic parts. People thought that we would be seeing the withered versions of those animatronics. I mean, the toy animatronics weren't withered, but I mean the withered ones were withered, but that's not what I meant. I also remember hearing a hoax about the toy animatronics slowly degrading over the course of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and they would eventually become like Mangle and become withered and destroyed, but that was short-lived because it was obviously not true. Just play the game and you'll see that they don't get withered over time. Shadow BB. Shadow Balloon Boy is a hoax in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Mobile Edition, and it's pretty obvious what this hoax is about. People said that there was a shadow version of balloon boy that could be found in this mobile version of the game. And this very popular hoax image came out online of the supposed Shadow Balloon Boy. Now, we should all know that this isn't true, but some people actually believe that Shadow Balloon Boy is actually hidden in the files of FNAF 2, or at least the mobile version, and is still there to this day. Fake teasers. Now, I put this one here because it's a very broad subject for Five Nights at Freddy's hoaxes, and even if you haven't seen all of them, you've probably at least seen one of these fake Five Nights at Freddy's teasers. And this one is actually one of the most popular ones. This one includes a fake Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic, also known as New Freddy, and people would copy and paste this animatronic into a bunch of their fake teasers. And well, there's also another very popular one that we can't forget about that we're going to talk about in the next entry, Freddyland. Now, one of those said fake teasers was a Freddyland, and this teaser was originally for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This fake image surfaced online sometime before FNAF 3 had its own official trailer, and people thought this was the real official trailer for FNAF 3. There was multiple theories of where this game was going to be located at, and well, this theory made people believe that it was going to take place in a whole amusement park, or well, maybe a carnival, but something along the lines of that. This was a very popular hoax image, and I bet people that never even played the game have probably seen this teaser before. Now, all of those hoaxes and rumors were fairly well known, especially among the FNAF community. Just like how I said earlier, even if you guys aren't that much involved in the FNAF community, you guys have probably seen these. Even if you're brand new fans, you guys should know about these. And I mean, I remember these also very vividly. I mean, I was an OG FNAF fan. I was a fan ever since the first Markiplier video came out about the games. But regardless of that, we're going to start to get into layer 2. These ones are pretty popular, but aren't as popular as the ones in layer 1 are. These ones are fairly well known, but also some people might not know of these, so let's get right into layer 2. Cupcake can blink. Now, as I said earlier, I was searching through a bunch of forum pages and Reddit pages for all of these FNAF hoaxes and rumors about Five Nights at Freddy's. And well, this Five Nights at Freddy's hoax actually has two variants of it. The first variant of this hoax was encountered in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, where people said you could occasionally see the cupcake blink, and you would most likely see this when you just put your camera down, and only people with a very keen and fast eye could catch it. But obviously this wasn't true. And in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the other variant of this hoax was that you could also see the cupcake blink in that game. There was a YouTube video that surfaced online of someone seeing the cupcake blink. Now, this video was obviously fake, but a bunch of people did believe it at the time. Other than that, there's not much more information to go on about this. Freddy handprint in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. In one of the Five Nights at Freddy's images, I'm not too sure which one it was. I think it might have been a mobile icon for Five Nights at Freddy's 1, or maybe something else. There was this image of Freddy Fazbear, and as you can see on this image, there's actually a slight handprint, or at least that's kind of what it looks like, on front of Freddy Fazbear's face. And now, I mean, this isn't really a hoax or rumor because you can clearly see that it's right there. But the hoax and rumor that came out about this image was that Freddy Fazbear caused the bite of 87. Now, as most FNAF fans know, no one actually 100% knows who caused the bite of 87. Most people theorize that it was one of the toy animatronics like Toy Bonnie or Mangle, but people at the very beginning of Five Nights at Freddy's believed that Freddy Fazbear was the reason or the perpetrator behind the bite of 87. FNAF 3 Free Roam. Now, this one is obviously pretty easy to determine what's fake about it. As you can see in this image above, this fake image came out when Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was about to get released, and in this image you can actually see what looks like to be free roam for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Now, this one is actually very easy to determine if it's fake or not. I mean, it just looked really bad. It doesn't look good, and I mean, it's one of the first images to showcase something that looks like free roam. And this image was actually part of a very big Five Nights at Freddy's 3 leak that wasn't real. And in this leak, there was a bunch of supposed images that were going to be in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, like animatronics, teasers, and etc. And even the Freddyland teaser that I mentioned earlier was in this big leak. So people thought that this was actually a real thing that was going to be in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. And it looked like it was actually going to take place in the first Five Nights at Freddy's 1 game pizzeria. Now, we all know this isn't true, but before the game came out, this was a very popular hoax and rumor. Chica moved the paper pal. Now, this one isn't necessarily a hoax, as no one is 100% sure about why this happens in the game. But in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you can see Withered Chica or Toy Chica standing right next to the paper pal in one of the party rooms. And people began to theorize that these animatronics were responsible for moving the paper pal. I mean, they stand right next to it, so I mean, I can believe why people thought this. And as I was doing more research about this topic, people said that most of the time after seeing these animatronics right next to the paper pal, once they put their camera down, the paper pal would actually be in their office. Now, I mean, I don't know if these accounts are true or not, but it is something to think about. Sugar the cat. Now, most OG FNAF fans know who this is. Now, there's a bunch of pieces of media that this character was in, especially like its main franchise. But most importantly, this character was used in the fake Five Nights at Freddy's 3 fan game. But the main hoax about this character came about in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In the prize corner area where you crank the music box, you can actually see a silhouette that looks like a cat. Now, no, there's not an actual hidden animatronic animatronic there, it's just a silhouette. But people did think this was homage or reference to the games. Now, I don't know if that game came out before Five Nights at Freddy's 2 or reverse, but who knows? People just thought that this was a homage or an actual Easter egg or an actual hidden character in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Salvage / Fred Shop animatronic. Now, people that watch my videos, yeah, we're gonna be talking about this animatronic again. This is like the third video that this animatronic has been featured in, but I mean, oh well, that's just how it goes. But before I tell you guys some information about it, I did make a full-length video about this animatronic that you guys should go check out. I'm not gonna go into as much detail as I did in that video, so after this video is over, go check it out. And I also featured him in a little segment in this video, so you guys should both go check out those videos after this one's over. But I will go over a quick synopsis for right now for the people that want the information on this character. But I won't go into full detail, so you guys will have to watch my other video. But Salvage / Fred Trap is the name of a supposed animatronic in FNAF 3 that people thought was gonna be in the game. Now, the first ever FNAF 3 teaser kinda shows an animatronic that doesn't necessarily look like Springtrap, at least in my eyes it doesn't. So who knows, maybe Scott redesigned the character. But anyways, people thought that the animatronic in the teaser was actually different than the one in the main game, which created the hoax of Fred Trap. But if you guys want more information, go check out my main video about it. You'll get a ton there. Yeah, I know that last entry was kind of a low ball, but oh well, I gotta get that watch time in, baby. Anyways, I'm assuming most of you guys knew a decent amount of those entries in the last layer, as most of them were fairly well known. But now, as we move on to layer 3, we start to go into some of the more forgotten hoaxes and rumors about FNAF. But if you're an OG fan, you guys should still know most of these anyways, so let's get into it. Puppet TV screen / possessed plushies. Now this one's actually kind of popular. Well, I mean, I guess it's a tad bit forgotten, but this image leaked online shortly after FNAF 2 was released. And as you can see, all the plushies on the desk have white dotted eyes as if they were possessed, and the screens behind them have static on them with the puppet on screen. Now I can't originally find where this image was posted at, but I'm assuming that the post caption or something along the lines of it was that this was a rare Easter egg that this person encountered. Because I don't know where else you would find something like this other than if it was an Easter egg. But no, this isn't true, but it would be kind of cool if it was. Cupcake is a camera. Now this one's pretty obvious. It was speculated that in FNAF 1 that the cupcake was actually a camera to spy on you. Now, I mean, who would be watching you though? The theory probably didn't get along that far because, I mean, like, it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, maybe, like, you know, it's a hive mind and all the animatronics can see, you know, blah, 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 blah. I don't really know. But, you know, that's probably because it's a far-fetched and kind of obscure theory. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe it really is a camera. Also, I guess this theory also kind of goes along for every FNAF game that has a cupcake in it. But, I mean, this one was particularly for the first one, but, you know, it could be included into every other game. So, I really don't know what else to say about this one. Bite of 87 cutscene custom night. Now, I also actually featured this hoax in another one of my videos. And that video is the most forgotten FNAF hoax video. But I will also give you guys a quick synopsis, just like how I did for the Fred Trap entry. But anyways, this hoax started in FNAF 1 and existed actually before the Golden Freddy Easter egg, in which you would put 1987 into the custom night menu and you would get the Golden Freddy cutscene. So people speculated that if you put this code in that you would actually get a cutscene of the Bite of 87. But Scott actually caught wind of this rumor and then proceeded to put the Golden Freddy Easter egg afterwards. People also thought that this was an Easter egg in FNAF 2, but I won't go into detail about that here. You guys will just have to watch my forgotten hoax video after this one. Golden Freddy poster in FNAF 2. This one's very self-explanatory. People speculated that in the prize counter corner that one of the posters on rare occasion would change into Golden Freddy and will work the same way as it did in the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, where you would see it on rare occasion once you open the camera. Now obviously this one isn't true because I'm pretty sure a bunch of people would see it, especially with how many times we have to open and close the camera throughout the nights to do the music box, but who knows, maybe it's actually in the game somewhere. It's not. Withered Bonnie with a face in FNAF 3. This one is also very self-explanatory. People thought that Withered Bonnie would be in FNAF 3 somewhere, or at least a phantom version of it would be. And people speculated that he would be in the game and would have his face, unlike how he is in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And there was a leaked image of Withered Bonnie with his face in the fake FNAF 3 image leak. But I don't know why people would have believed it, because the image looked really bad and low quality and just didn't look realistic. But I mean, I guess those FNAF fans were really desperate back in the old days. Nightmare JJ Easter egg in FNAF 4. Just like how JJ shows up in FNAF 2, people speculated that since there was a Nightmare Balloon Boy variant, that there would also be a Nightmare JJ. Now this one was actually a very believable hoax, as the images that were online of this hoax looked very realistic. And for the first time in this video, I would say if you believe that this hoax was real, you weren't the only person. I mean, I guess, you know, the Sparky the Dog hoax was very believable too, but that's not the point. As hoaxes started to become worse and worse throughout the game franchise, it was very rare for a hoax, especially from FNAF 4, to be so believable. I mean, just look at these images. They're actually really good, especially for a hoax that was all the way in FNAF 4. Pair of eyes in Balloon Boy. In FNAF 2, when Balloon Boy enters your office, people looked very closely into his mouth and saw, well, what looked like to be a pair of eyes. Now, while looking at it, you can actually kind of see eyeballs. And while people believe that Balloon Boy was stuffed with a child because of this, but I mean, look at how thin his neck is. I just don't think that'd be possible. Plus, bro is too short and stubby for a child to be stuck in there. But this isn't really necessarily a hoax. I would say this is more of a rumor, because we've actually never got a confirmed reason of what was inside of Balloon Boy Boy to make this weird shadow or, well, whatever this is. Chrome Freddy. Chrome Freddy was a hoax for FNAF 3 created by the very popular YouTuber Jimbathy. And well, I'm not gonna go into detail, I'm just gonna show you the video.
After a while, if you just dick around with the cameras, eventually Chrome Freddy will come and put you in his mouth. It's totally
FNAF 3 troll game Springlock music. Yeah, this title's a little bit confusing, I know, I made the Iceberg, but I'll explain it. So since FNAF 3 was supposedly leaked and cancelled, Scott made this troll game, and in typical Scott fashion as well. And as his FNAF fans believed, it was gonna be the real game, and it wasn't. But anyways, that's not the point. The main menu music for this troll game was actually originally the music that was supposed to be used in FNAF 3. And well, this music is actually very disturbing. Now, one of the rumors that revolved around this strange, disturbing menu music was that the game was actually going to take place in a sewer because it sounded like dripping water and something that you would hear in a sewer. But my own personal opinion and theory on this topic is that it's the sound of William Afton after being springlocked and dying alone in the safe room. Here, take a listen and tell me what you think. Does it sound like a sewer or a spring lock? I mean, it could sound like both. In my personal opinion, I'd like to believe that this is what it sounded like after William Afton was spring locked. Now, as we move further down the iceberg, I hope that you guys didn't know most of the entries on that last layer, because some of those were actually kind of obscure and, well, weren't that very well known. I mean, some were, but most of them weren't. I kind of tried to go in the middle there, where some were obscure and some were also really well known. But now, as we move down, we're going to start to get into some of the more obscure ones and some of the kind of disturbing ones. I had to look pretty hard for these ones, so I hope you guys don't know these ones that much. Puppet TV screen / possessed plushies. Wait, didn't I just do this one? Oh, I guess I put it in twice. Whoops, my bad. Here's a cookie instead, my bad. Baz Bunker Theory and Sister Location. Now this rumor / hoax / theory came in 5 Nights at Freddy's sister location. After people found out where the game was taking place at in an underground facility, people thought that the game would actually take place in a post-apocalyptic world. And people thought that Freddy Fazbear Entertainment actually started to make bunkers, kind of like how Vault-Tec does in the Fallout games, if you know what that is. Obviously, that was kind of a stretch, but some people did believe that this game was going to take place in one of those Freddy Fazbear bunkers during the apocalypse. Now, other than that, I can't find any more information on it now, since every single piece of information I find is just about people clowning on this theory. But I do remember this hoax / theory being very popular when FNAF Sister Location was announced. 6666 Custom Night Kitchen Camera. It was rumored that if you put 666 in the custom night menu and start the night, you would actually be able to see the kitchen camera. And while since in FNAF 1 you can't see the camera, people always wondered what was in there. People wondered if the Golden Freddy was in there, or who knows. But no, this one obviously isn't true. Funtime Chica. Now this hoax isn't actually based off of the real Funtime Chica. This hoax is about a fake Sister Location teaser that included a Funtime Chica design. The image on screen, as you can see, is what this hoax was. But when the first couple of teasers started to come out for Sister Location, this teaser was very believable at the time. But who knows, maybe it's the reason we have the Funtime Chica that we have today. Nightmare Spring Bonnie. In 5 Nights at Freddy's 4, people thought that Nightmare Spring Bonnie or Nightmare Springtrap was in the game. This hoax and rumor became popular after the Halloween update came out and introduced a bunch more Nightmare characters, which people thought that this hoax was one of them. There's some hoax images online, but they're not really that good, and I don't know what made this hoax become a thing or just why people believed it in general, but yeah. Flip Trap. Now this one's actually kind of interesting, and this is one of FNAF's most recent hoaxes. And well, it's one that actually a bunch of people kind of believe, despite of how recent it is. Now before I get into it, I tried to find a bunch of information on this, and I really couldn't. I couldn't even find any pictures of this hoax online except this one. But from all that I could gather, Flip Trap is a fake animatronic that was based around Burn Trap, or maybe it was Glitch Trap, I'm not really too 100% sure. But anyways, this hoax was based off of one of these animatronics, and was a cut version or alternative version of it. Now I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I do not know if this is true or not because I couldn't find that much information online about this, so if I got any information wrong, which I'm pretty sure I did, please tell me in the comment section below as I want to know more about this hoax. Shadow animatronics are night guards. This is a theory for FNAF 2, and it's about the shadow animatronics, obviously. This is one of my personal favorite theories as this one could be plausible. This rumor just states that the shadow animatronics are hallucinations brought on from dead night guards that worked previous shifts and died, or are just souls of dead night guards and etc. Now looking back, this could be true, which makes this theory / rumor way more interesting, and it's still pretty cool to think about, and was way more popular when the game first came out. Real life Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Now everyone should know about this hoax, and I don't know why I put it so far down, but oh well, I guess I did. Just ignore that. But this hoax is very easy to explain, as an image surfaced online shortly after the first FNAF game came out. And well, this is it. I bet all of you guys have seen this image at least once. People thought that this was a real image, and well, I mean, who can blame them? Springtrap is Golden Foxy. Now Now this hoax slash rumor is talking about the first Five Nights at Freddy's 3 teaser. As I mentioned in the earlier entry, Fred Trap was a hoax revolving around the first Five Nights at Freddy's 3 teaser, as no one knew who Springtrap was or what animatronic it was based off of. So some people actually believe that this was a version of Foxy that was golden. Now this hoax died out pretty quickly, especially after the Fred Trap theory started to come around. But I would say that some people did believe this for quite a very long time, and there's even a little bit of fan art about this character, which means it did get a tiny bit popular even if I've never heard about it until I did research for this video. Well, I hope you guys learned about some new hoaxes and rumors in that layer because, well, I know I did. Now some of those entries are pretty creepy and honestly kind of unsettling and disturbing. I know the first couple of layers didn't have that many creepy hoaxes involved in them, but now we're going to start to get into some of the more weird, strange, and kind of disturbing entries on this list. So let's get into them. FNAF 4 took place in a museum slash auction house. This entry brought back some serious memories. This rumor slash theory was about where the FNAF 4 game was going to be taking place at. And after the first Five Nights at Freddy's 4 trailer came out, people started to think that these animatronics were in an auction house or auctioned off to the player's house. I mean, in the first trailer, you can see a house and the animatronics are roaming around in it. So people believe that some people bought these animatronics either as memorabilia or etc. And well, they were still possessed and were still coming to kill you. Another popular version of this hoax is that the game was going to take place in a museum. Now this version of the hoax came out before the trailer came out, because as we can see, the game took place in a house from the trailer and it just wouldn't make sense. But when the first couple of teasers were posted on Scott's website, people were really into that idea that after the third game when Fazbear's Frights got burned down, a bunch of memorabilia was getting auctioned off and sold, which is why the game took place in a museum. Now imagine that, like a night at the museum game, but instead of it being related to the movie franchise, it was all Five Nights at Freddy's. The idea is very unique and I feel like would run pretty well with the storyline or for its own unique side storyline. I don't know, but this is one of my favorite theories slash rumors that I kind of wish was experimented on in more fan games or in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise in general. Screw security breach, put that stuff in a museum, make the story around it being auctioned off and it still being haunted, and boom, that would be a terrifying game. Mic Trap. Before Springtrap was confirmed to be William Afton, people actually thought that the corpse inside was Michael Afton, and people called this hoax version of Springtrap Mic Trap. Well, there's actually another version of this hoax that is more popular and well known than that version, and that version of the hoax is when you get stuffed in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Some people named this animatronic Mic Trap, especially after FNAF 3 came out. People thought that this was almost like the same thing as Springtrap, except just a different animatronic suit. And it would have been the same thing basically, puppet reflection in window. Now this one doesn't have that much information around it except a simple image. In Five Nights at Freddy's 4, you could see on the right hallway there's a window, and while looking out the door to see the hallway, once you flash your flashlight on, people thought that you could actually see the puppet outside of the window. And well, let me just show you the screenshot. I mean, you can kind of see an eyeball, you can't really see anything else, but I guess I do understand where these people are coming from. Maybe it's true, I don't know, it's a bit far-fetched, but you never know. It could have been foreshadowing Nightmare Beyond in the Halloween update, but honestly, I think that's stretching pretty far too, so I don't know. You'd have to escape after every night in FNAF 3. Now this is an awesome hoax, and I really wish this was implemented into one of the games somehow. Now I don't know why people thought this was a thing, especially since this hoax was only just for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, but before the game came out, people speculated that you would actually have to escape Fazbear Frights every night to beat the night. So you would do your shift, and then afterwards you would have to escape. I mean, I guess this rumor and hoax could go for any Five Nights at Freddy's game, but apparently this one got super popular for FNAF 3, and while I think people just wanted to have a free roam game at that point, it's still a very unique hoax, and I wish this was implemented onto one of the games. Freddy goes through doors. Do you hate when you're playing Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and Freddy jump scares you from seemingly out of nowhere? Well, what if I told you that he is actually an omnipotent being that can teleport through doors? Well, that's what some people thought for Five Nights at Freddy's 1. People thought he could just simply teleport through the door. Yeah, I kind of put this one as a joke entry. Some people did actually believe it for a short amount of time, until it was just, you know, obviously debunked immediately after because he can't teleport. Now, you know who can teleport? Golden Freddy. But no, it wasn't about Golden Freddy, it was just about normal Freddy. So yeah, I don't really know. Owner of restaurant named Freddy. Okay, now we're getting to some OG theories for the first FNAF game. Before any major lore was set into place, people speculated that the owner of the restaurant was just named Freddy, and named Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria after himself. It's a very simple rumor slash theory, but we all know it isn't true anymore, but yeah, it's just something that people thought of. Withered Bonnie had a skull inside his head. This one is just what it says. People said that you could see a skull inside of Withered Bonnie, but I mean, I just can't see it. Maybe you guys can, I don't really know, but yeah, I don't see anything, so I don't know. Freddy is advanced AI. This one's an interesting one. In Five Nights at Freddy's 1, people thought that Freddy Fazbear was actually a very advanced AI, and the reason people believed that is because he wouldn't move until the later nights. So some people said that he was actually analyzing how the other animatronics move and how the player played the game, and after he analyzed all that, he would begin to strike and attack during the later nights. Now this is a really good theory actually, and for the first couple of games this is actually kind of plausible, especially when Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, and the phone guy mentioned that the animatronics had a criminal database built inside of them. So I mean, it isn't that far-fetched, but lore-wise, yes, these animatronics are very ahead of their time for what they are capable of. But gameplay-wise, no, Freddy cannot actually track what the player does throughout the previous nights and does not plan his attacks accordingly, but it would be very terrifying if he could. The Living Tombstone songs are canon. No, they're not. It'd be pretty cool if they were, but no, they're just not. People believe that they were because Scott did acknowledge these songs and said what his favorite one was a very long time ago, but for some reason people thought that this meant they were canon, but no, they're not. Now, I hope most of you guys didn't know about those previous entries, as those ones are super obscure and aren't known about at all. But now, we're getting into the final layer. A lot of these were based off of actual hoaxes and theories about the games, but 2 of these entries I actually made myself, so you'll never see these hoaxes anywhere else on the internet, until well after you see this video posted, and then boom, you'll see these ones on the internet, but you know what I mean. So throughout this layer, I want you guys to try and determine which ones I made up and which ones I didn't. You know, let's have a little fun with this last layer. But anyways, let's get right into it. They hide your body and never tell anyone. Now this one's kind of getting in the creepypasta territory. This hoax is about a supposed minigame of the crying child, and how what was inside of the locked box at the end of FNAF 4 was the body of the crying child. Now the main premise of this supposed minigame was to play as a character carrying the crying child's corpse to the box and hiding it away forever. Supposedly this minigame was supposed to be very brutal and very bloody, but well, it was never in the game, but some people believe that that was what was hiding inside of the box. Based on real life, this entry is talking about the first ever game theories video about Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and how MatPat related the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 to an actual real life at a Chuck E. Cheese. Now, to not talk in bad spirit about the victims or about the whole situation in general, just note the theory is not true. It was quickly debunked, and especially looking back on it, it just doesn't make any plausible sense. I guess it could kind of correlate and make sense to the first game, but after all the new lore, we obviously know this isn't true. And this one's so far down not because of how obscure it is, but because of how disturbing it is. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch the first Five Nights at Freddy's game theories video and you'll understand. Freddy Fazbear's has a basement. Have you ever played the first ever Five Nights at Freddy's map in Gary's mod? Now the reason I'm asking this is because this map has a basement in it, which made people speculate that there was actually a basement in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria in the first game, and it was located somewhere in the back room off camera. Now if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have footage on screen of it, so don't worry about it. People speculated that this is where William Afton would lead the children to game end them, and that he would hide their corpses in the basement before he could stuff them. Which I mean, if the basement was just connected to the back room and hidden off a camera, no one would ever suspect anything or see anything happen. Just lock that door and boom. And some people actually speculate that Golden Freddy, instead of being in the kitchen, was hidden in this hidden basement area. In the Gary's mod map, this is where the generator for the power supply is at. So a bunch of people actually correlated these things and thought the basement was actually canon in the real Five Nights at Freddy's 1 game, but we'll never know because it was never denied or confirmed. Scott Cawthon sold his soul. Would you do whatever it takes to become successful? Do you want to become a famous singer, actress, musician, model, or etc.? Well, some people might want to choose a different career path, and that goes without saying that Scott Cawthon might have been one of those people. After developing games for many years of his life and having all of them fail tremendously, Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. was Scott's final game before he retired, as all of his other games failed, including this one. And after getting a bunch of hate and bad reviews on this final game, Scott finally snapped. He couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to retire but knew that he couldn't. He wanted to go out with a bang. So Scott made a deal with the devil and sold his soul to become the most popular indie game developer ever. And getting into a depressive state, he finally went with it. And feeling inspired by one of the hate comments telling him the characters in Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. looked like animatronics, he used that inspiration to make Five Nights at Freddy's. And with little to no support or any money coming in to fund the game, he went all in. And immediately after the release of the game, it became one of the most popular indie games and games in general. Now, why do you think this happened? Well, because Scott Cawthon sold his soul. Or well, at least that's what some people think. How do you get overnight success like that from developing a stupid little video game? Did he get successful because his game was innovative, terrifying, and unique, or was there something else going on behind the scenes? Some people say that he did sell his soul, but I guess we'll never know. FNAF 4 based on Scott Cawthon's house. While developing Five Nights at Freddy's 4, people speculate that Scott actually used real floor plans of his house. I mean, not exact replicas, because what room has 2 doorways that lead to a hallway, but some people believe that he used a real life inspiration in his own house to actually develop the rooms, hallways, and etc. And same with the minigames. People said that he used the same floor plans for the FNAF 4 minigames, including the crying child, who actually developed the layout. I mean, I guess we'll never know, but this is a very plausible theory, and it would explain why the pictures in the hallway are of his real life family. Congratulations, you survived the Five Nights at Freddy's Hoax and Rumor Iceberg. And most importantly, you survived the final, most terrifying layer of the iceberg. Now put your bets down on which 2 hoaxes were mine that I've made up. I'll give you a couple seconds, alright? Alright, do you got your bets placed? Well, I made up the final 2 entries. I know, those are pretty good ones, right? But I do hope you guys enjoyed this iceberg. FNAF is by far one of the only horror games to have masked the amount of success that it's had over the years. And with that success, it was bound to have multiple copycats, ripoffs, and etc.
Okay!
But it also had many fan games, and I mean literally thousands of fan games. Many are still being made today, 10 years after the first FNAF release. And due to there being so many fan games, we're going to take a look at some of the best, scary, underrated, and so on animatronics in those games. And we'll even look at some that were never featured in fan games as well. So welcome to the ultimate fan-made FNAF animatronic iceberg. Before we get into this video, make sure to subscribe if you love Five Nights at Freddy's. Now I'm sure many of you know how an iceberg video works, so I'm not gonna bother explaining how it works. But a quick disclaimer, all credit to the creators of the animatronics are in the description, so please feel free to check out their other games, projects, or animatronics after this video. Anyways, let's get into layer 1. Baddington is a FNAF YouTuber known for his FNAF VHS videos that have high quality production. Many of his videos are recreations of other FNAF VHS videos, but instead are remade with his own custom animatronics. The animatronics are based off of the FNAF Plus animatronics, but are fused with the Rockafire explosion character element instead of the normal FNAF animatronics. Freddy has a more rubbery face, along with a bigger snout and sharper teeth. Freddy also has less visible joints and is also sporting a vest along with pants. Bonnie also has a vest and pants similar to Freddy, but this time Bonnie has a bigger face along with rosy red cheeks and big beady eyes. Chica on the other hand has one eye broken along with a more droopy beak. Everything is the same about her except for the pink bow tie and pants, with even the cupcake having a complete redesign. Foxy is probably the creepiest and the most human-like out of the bunch. Foxy has very realistic eyes that almost make him look human, and I think the rest can speak for itself in terms of how good these designs are. Now everyone knows what FNAF Plus is, the very popular cancelled FNAF fan game that was a complete reimagining of FNAF 1. This game is arguably one of the most popular FNAF fan games ever, and so are the animatronics. All of the animatronics combine elements from the FNAF 1 animatronics, and also slightly combine elements from the Withered in FNAF 2. Freddy is the most normal out of all of them, having black pants and a vest on, along with maintaining his iconic look. Bonnie on the other hand looks terrifying, with the big bug eyes and his face almost looking like a skull. He is also wearing pants that has straps on them, and he also holds a banjo instead of a guitar. Chica is the main animatronic that takes heavy inspiration from FNAF 2 Withered Chica, as seen by her mouth. Foxy was also heavily given the FNAF 2 treatment, but at the same time almost has the face of Nightmare Foxy. These animatronics are some of the scariest, but Foxy and the rest of the animatronics I feel like break the immersion because they try way too hard to be scary, and they just wouldn't fit in a children's pizzeria. But regardless, they are still definitely some of the most popular fan-made FNAF animatronics ever. Juniors is a FNAF fan game based off of the building we see in the Midnight Motorist minigame in FNAF Pizzeria Simulator. The game takes a more retro and stylized look to all the animatronics seen throughout the nights, with the game having a decent sized roster of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Balloon Baby, Marionette, while also having withered versions of all these characters as well. We also can't forget probably the most known out of the whole game, the Mangle. All of these characters are given a furry body, along with having more details that make them appeal to kids more, while also maintaining an uncanny valley feel from them. This goes the same for the Withered variants. They for the most part share the same features, but are just modeled to look more like the FNAF 2 versions instead. The only characters that stray away from these design choices are Mangle, Marionette, and Balloon Baby. Marionette and Balloon Baby share many features, the main one being that they look like porcelain dolls more than anything. And Mangle, well, he looks like a scorpion. It's massive in size and has a little pet owl attached to its sea of parts, and it's probably one of my favorite animatronics ever. Pop Goes is a FNAF fan game series that takes place in an alternative universe, where only the first 3 FNAF games are canon, while also sharing a continuity with Five Nights at Candy's. Now Pop Goes has a lot of animatronics throughout its many games, and cancelled games to look at. So we're going to take a look at some of the most popular from the series, with obviously the most popular one being Pop Goes the Weasel. The most well-known version of this character is the Pop Goes Evergreen version, most well known for his green attire. But then there is also the original versions from the earlier versions of the games, with Pop Goes having a way longer torso and also having no clothes on. The joy of creation is only really known for one thing, and that is the animatronics. The ignited animatronics have been a fan favorite ever since the FNAF franchise started, with them blowing up in popularity after the game came out. The ignited animatronics consist of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, Springtrap, and Creation. All of the animatronics are extremely broken down and, at times, burnt versions of the FNAF counterparts, with the only exception being Creation. It's no surprise these animatronics became infamous in the FNAF community, with them being unique recreations of the original FNAF designs, and with them also being terrifying in gameplay. Creation, on the other hand, is a combination of all of those animatronics, having 3 legs, 4 arms, with the head of Freddy. Plus, it also looks like a spider, so yeah. One Night at Flumpty's is one of the first original FNAF fan games, releasing way back in 2015. This game was one of the first fan games that included original characters not originated from FNAF, with it including Flumpty, Birthday Boy Slam, the Beaver, Redman, Grunkfuss, and Golden Flumpty. As you can tell, every character is very unique from one another and are all inspired from Humpty Dumpty and other media in the fantasy genre. There is also many other characters from the 3 other sequels, but since One Night at Flumpty's has some of the more well-known ones, I won't bother looking at those ones, especially since many characters return in those games. Five Nights at Candy's is also one of the first FNAF fan games to have original characters, like how One Nights at Flumpty's had, with it also releasing the same year as Flumpty's in 2015. Candy's includes, well, Candy, Cindy, Blank, Chester, Penguin, Old Candies, the Rat, and Vinny. Each animatronic has very similar vibes to the animatronics seen in FNAF 2, like the toys, Mangle, and the puppet. Candy and Cindy are both cats that are very reminiscent of the toy animatronics. Blank reminds me of Mangle, being all torn up and also having children's drawings all over him. Chester follows the toy animatronic design, same as Candy and Cindy, with just being a monkey instead. Penguin, yet again, follows the same formula as the rest, but is just the penguin. Old Candy is just a withered OG version of the normal Candy, but instead is deep blue instead of the light blue normal Candy has. The Rat follows the same design as Old Candy, looking all beat up while missing some parts of his body, but Vinny is literally just a reskin of the puppet, so yeah. Only OG FNAF fans will know about the draw kills, because in the early days of the FNAF franchise, these were quite literally everywhere. You couldn't go on the internet without seeing one of these somewhere. The draw kills were made by an artist called, well, Draw Kill. These animatronics became an instant classic because of their very steampunky and post-apocalyptic aesthetic, which till this day hasn't been replicated. Freddy sports a canister of some sort on his back, while also having a giant row of stitches on his chest. Bonnie has giant hands, and also has some strange design on his chest. Chica has a visible rib cage, and also has gill-like appendages on her arm. Foxy is missing a lot of his torso, showing his ribs as well, and is missing all of his left leg. Oh yeah, you also can't forget his giant hook either. Yeah, I mean, not much else to say about these are just a classic, and like, everyone should know these. Tyke & Sons is one of the most underrated FNAF fan games on this list. Based on Scott Cawthon's Chipper & Sons Lumber Co., it combines both elements from that game and FNAF all into one. I would definitely check this game out, as it's probably one of the most well-made FNAF fan games ever. Anyways, taking a look at the animatronics, we can notice a very similar theme on most of them, with the most popular and arguably best looking animatronics being Kill Timber, Sea Billy, Summer Crab, and Happy Shroom. These are all the main animatronics seen throughout the game. Kill Timber looks very similar to the Beaver character seen in the game, while also maintaining the same vibes as the Nightmares and Withered animatronics. Sea Billy is basically just a recreation of Ennard, just an amalgamation of wires and parts with sharp teeth like the Nightmares have and broken like the Withereds are as well. Summer Crab is one of my favorite fan-made animatronics ever as well, just because of how unique it is. Taking a look at it, you can immediately tell that it is a recreation of Springtrap in a way, with the color scheme, the red part sticking out looking like flesh, and the fact that it is also withered. Also, just take a look at that mouth. Bro gives Withered Chica a run for her money. But looking at Happy Shroom now, this animatronic also is one of the most unique I've ever seen too, taking many characteristics from Nightmare Freddy with the sharp teeth, hands, little mushrooms instead of freckles. Yeah, I think you get the point. These are just some of the most unique in my opinion, and it takes a lot of characteristics from other FNAF games. Over the years, Treasure Island has gotten many of games and re-releases, but we're going to take a look at the original animatronics in this game, which are some of the most well known. Treasure Island includes many characters, but we're only going to take a look at some of them, with those being Photo Negative Minnie, Oswald, The Face, Suicide Mouse, and Disembodied. Many of these characters are very self-explanatory. I mean, they are just Disney characters. Photo Negative Minnie is exactly that, based off of the Treasure Island Creepypasta story where the narrator encounters a character that looks the same as this. Oswald is an all-black character with dark blue accents. With the body of a rabbit, he doesn't have much to say about him, but he sure as hell is difficult to see. The Face is a reskin of Mickey Mouse, instead without legs and with having human eyes and very weird ears. Suicide Mouse is also based off of the creepypasta of the same name, and is just a black and white version of Mickey. Disembodied is the head of Donald Duck with black eyes, not much else. These might not be the most special animatronics, but people who were part of the FNAF community in the early days should have a special place in their hearts for these. Oblitas Casa is the newest version of Five Nights in Treasure Island, including a majority of the same characters, but with them looking heavily improved and way better. Now this game has literally dozens of animatronics, like over 20 plus when you count all of the unique variants and so on. So we're just going to take a look at the main ones, which are Willy, Belial, Daisy, The Face, Photo Negative Minnie, Pete, and Dippy. Willy is based off of the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey, which is black and white with a white hat. Belial is based off of Disney's, hold on, let's try not to butcher this, or Tunisia? I don't know, I think that's it, maybe not. Anyways, with major differences. The character is halfway melted, with no lower body, and also has black with slight colors that are faded. Daisy is the head of Daisy Duck, with tentacle-like appendages coming from the base of the head. The Face has 3 unique versions, but we will look at the main one. He is the same as the Treasure Island version, but with better textures basically. He also has realistic eyes and also appears to be melting. Photo Negative Minnie is the same as Photo Negative Mickey, but just Minnie Mouse. She has realistic eyes as well and also has a very shiny texture to her. Pete is based off of the original version of him from Steamboat Willie. He is the same color scheme as Willie and is basically just a one-of-one creation of Pete. Dippy is a black and white character which resembles Goofy. The name is a reference to Goofy's original name, and not much else can be said about him since he's kind of just basic. These ones were a little hard to describe, mainly because they're just recreations of Disney characters, so I mean, as long as you knew who the characters were, then you should know who they were based off of and all that. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese also has 2 versions, the 2015 version and the rebooted version. The 2015 version of the animatronics are not very good, so we'll take a look at the rebooted versions instead. Now, if you know anything about Chuck E. Cheese, you should know the animatronics, but if not, then there's Chuck E. Cheese, Jasper, Mr. Munch, Helen, Pasquale, Krusty the Cat, and exclusive to the game's Costume. All these animatronics are based off of the late 70s and early 80s versions of these animatronics, which means they are all portrait versions of them. So that means they don't have a lower body. So if you know what these look like in real life, well, not much changed for them in the game versions. Anyways, Chuck E. Cheese looks like, well, Chuck E. Cheese, duh. Jasper wears a western hat and a red flannel and a pair of overalls. He is also missing his hand and has a banjo. Mr. Munch is a purple monster with yellow hair and eyebrows. He has sharp teeth and is also very similar to the modern Mr. Munch. Helen is a white chicken with brownish hair and also has blood on her beak. She has lifelike hands and also uses a guitar. Pasquale wears a chef's outfit and also holds pizza in his hand. Krusty the Cat wasn't in the original Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese. He's the most withered out of the animatronics with white eyes and a baseball shirt that is all stained. Costume also didn't appear in the OG Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese and is just a costume version of Chuck E. Cheese. Fredbear and Friends is a game that takes place in Fredbear's Family Diner, so we get to see fan-made iterations of some characters from the FNAF franchise, with some of those iterations being Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, Prototype, Rotten Freddy, Rotten Bonnie, Rotten Chica, Rotten Foxy, and so on. This game does have more animatronics, but these ones are the best in my opinion, so we'll look at these ones. Fredbear looks exactly like he would in the games, and I'd say it matches a lot to what an unnightmared version of him would look like from FNAF 4. Spring Bonnie looks a lot like Bonnie, and not so much like what a Spring Bonnie suit would look like in the actual FNAF games, but I think it looks really good. Prototype as well, a prototype of the endoskeleton. He has a very wide frame and a very weird thing around his head. Like, are those ears? I can't really tell. The rotten animatronics all look the same in a sense. They are all basically just withered animatronics, but more realistic in the way they age. They are melting and are rotten from age, which makes the suits look as if they're falling off from the endoskeletons. These are some of my favorite iterations of the withered animatronics as they look the most realistic. Five Nights at Wario's is one of the fan games of all time. Probably one of the most random fan games on this list, but it is a classic, so I couldn't skip it. This game includes Wario, Waluigi, Luigi, Mario, and Peach. Wario and Waluigi are completely normal looking apart from the fact their eyes are white. Luigi is the same, apart from him just having black eyes. Same goes with Peach, she just has black eyes and a blacked out mouth too. Mario is the only one who is semi-unique looking. He has no head, only a floating hat, mustache, and glowing white eyes. Yeah, these ones were quick to explain, but not all of them need super complex explanations on this list. These ones are just a classic and you can't forget these. Sinister Turmoil is a cancelled fan game that is very popular for how much of a letdown it was for being cancelled, but is also well known for its animatronics. The Sinister animatronics are recreations of the main 5 animatronics from FNAF, those being Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy. They all have the same bodies as they do in FNAF 2, with some notable differences. Those being the sharp teeth they have, along with them also having no eyes. Bonnie also has his face still in this rendition of the animatronic. These animatronics are what I imagine a fuse of the Withered and the Nightmares would look like, and they look really high quality, so it's a shame that the game got cancelled. Lego FNAF is exactly what it sounds like. It's FNAF but Lego. So these animatronics are also very self-explanatory. The game was unfortunately pulled due to copyright reasons, but the first game can still be found online and played. We were originally going to get the first 3 games, but that'll never happen since the game got cancelled. Anyways, here's a look at the animatronics. As I said, it's literally just FNAF but Legos, but yeah. I'd say they look pretty much like Legos. Like if these were real Legos, I think this is very, very good and they probably would look like this in real life. Not much to explain, they're just Legos and I think they are really cool looking. Five Nights at Krusty Krab is exactly what it sounds like. You spend 5 nights at the Krusty Krab while you try not to die. It's another one of the classic FNAF fan games and is very well known amongst the OG FNAF community. The game includes SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs. All the characters are designed as robots instead of them being based off of the actual characters. Do I really need to explain these ones? I mean, like, I will, but like, who doesn't know SpongeBob? Like, SpongeBob is a yellow sponge. Boom, he's explained. And Patrick is obviously a pink starfish, but in this iteration he has buck teeth for some reason. Like, I don't think he ever had buck teeth in the show. Sandy is a squirrel, and she's missing her glass helmet for some reason, but I guess she's a robot in this game, so it doesn't matter. Squidward is Squidward, obviously he's turquoise and whatnot, but for some reason in this game he is super thin and doesn't look the same as he does in the show. Like, his head is just a cylinder. I don't know why, but yeah. And then Mr. Krabs looks like, well, Mr. Krabs. Okay, next game, that's it. Don't need to explain these anymore. Twisted Carnival is a newer fan game that is still being developed. It takes place in a carnival and has very creepy animatronics all based off of the main 4 in FNAF, with those being Bear Hug, Bonzo, Trixie, and Foxtrot. All these animatronics are very unique, and if you've been listening to this video instead of watching, I'd recommend looking now, because I can't really explain these ones. Bear Hug is obviously Freddy, with a very creepy face with a yellow bow tie and hat. Bonzo is Bonnie, he also has the same creepy face as Freddy and has a very distinct red bow tie. Trixie is the most unique out of the bunch, with a very different design compared to the others. Trixie is Chica, but is a cheerleader version instead. She has pom-poms and wears very different clothes. Foxtrot is Foxy, but has a very different face compared to how Foxy does in the FNAF games. He looks the same as the rest and isn't as withered as he is in FNAF 1. These animatronics are very creepy and are very well made, and honestly, they are just very, very oversized for like how they would be in real life or whatever you're trying to replicate, and I think it makes them look way more ominous and terrifying. Shadow Over Freddy's is a very interesting FNAF game, not because of the animatronics, but because of the gameplay. It's a point-and-click free roam game, unlike many other free roam FNAF games. This game has a very simple roster of characters: Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the puppet. They are all one-to-one recreations with small minor different details compared to the originals. The main difference is that they are all black and white and have white eyes instead. The reason I included them is just because of the simplicity behind them. They aren't overdone or excessively creepy, they are just simple. And as you can see right now, they're just recreations. There's nothing really special about them, they're just kind of spooky looking. The Final Nights franchise has a lot of animatronics, many of them kinda bad, but there is a few good ones that we will be looking at, those being Reaper Puppet and Reaper Balloon Boy. Even though this game doesn't have a lot of good animatronics, I think these make up for it. Reaper Puppet is a demonic version of the puppet, with tentacle-like appendages as legs and arms. Its body and face almost looks organic and not like an animatronic would, and the same goes for Reaper Balloon Boy. He has very contorted arms that almost double the size of his body. He looks almost like a cracked porcelain porcelain doll or like a melted animatronic. No in between. These two just look like demons. I would say that's the best way to describe them because like what the hell are these? I don't know a better way to describe them other than that. Before we start the final layer, I'd like to mention to you guys that subscribing really helps the channel. If you are already subscribed, joining my membership also really helps and allows me to make daily shorts and weekly long form content. Anyways, enough with the plugging, let's get into this layer. These animatronics don't come from a game, but rather a fan-made rendition of the FNAF Plus animatronics. Made by Ratas, these versions are a more realistic take on the animatronics from FNAF Plus, making them appear a little bit more kid-friendly than the FNAF Plus ones are. Freddy looks really good, still maintaining the same jacket and clothing while also having a toned-down face that isn't exaggerated. Bonnie isn't as terrifying. He still has a skull-shaped head and similar clothing, but at least his eyes aren't staring into my soul as much anymore. Chica is still broken looking, but looks less broken than the original FNAF Plus version does. She still has a messed up jaw and eye, but the difference is noticeable. Foxy looks something straight out of a nightmare, but due to the excessive withering, I think this is to be expected. Even his endoskeleton parts have more detail than they would normally. Personally, I like these versions more than the normal FNAF Plus versions, but that's just my own personal opinion. I think these are a better and more realistic take than the FNAF Plus versions are. A Bite at Freddy's is one of the newer FNAF fan games on this list. A Bite at Freddy's includes the same portrait animatronic style seen in Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese. This game incorporates the original FNAF animatronics and the original 80s style all into one, which gives them a very stylish design. The game includes Talk Show Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Threadbare. Freddy is very bare bones, not having his mic or anything. He wears a nice red suit and a top hat. Bonnie wears a pink suit and also holds a glass of wine and a cigar. Chica is a cowgirl, brandishing a gun and wearing cowboy attire. Foxy is now a scientist, wearing thick glasses and also holding a pencil tool. Threadbare is a recreation of Fredbear, wearing a Scion suit and a purple top hat, and holding a wand. To be honest, I don't really know what that is, but yeah. He is withered and also has a chunk of his head bandaged. These animatronics are some of my favorite in recent time due to the style they have, and because I mean they just look so damn good. I mean, these are some of the highest quality animatronics we've seen in a very long time. These actually look like something that would be in a kid's pizzeria, not like the FNAF Plus animatronics are. Like, these are really good. So this game doesn't have a wiki page, meaning I don't know the info behind this game or how many animatronics are in it and so on, but I wanted to include it because of the couple animatronics I've seen from this game. I think the game has 4 animatronics, those being the Trickster, the Corpse, the Demon, and the Machine. The Trickster is a clown character with a huge mouth, white eyes, and I think we've also seen this in the FNAF franchise as well. The Corpse is what I think to be Michael Afton, but I might be wrong. He wears no shirt, has no eyes, and looks to be stuffed with animatronic parts. The Demon is a creature similar to Ennard, and it's just a creepy looking endoskeleton. The Machine is just Scrap Baby, nothing else. I wish I had more information on this game because it looks very interesting and it has some good character designs in my opinion. The Night Toys are one of my favorite fan-made animatronics ever, just because of how underrated they are. I don't even think I need to explain these. Just look at them and you'll understand why these are on the list because like, what are these, bro? These are terrifying. These animatronics literally look like nightmares. Actually, never mind, scratch that. They look like they came out of a nightmare and came into the real world. They look like real-life organisms, not even animatronics. Yeah, end the video now. These beat all the other animatronics. This is it. End the video now. Just kidding. And just kidding. The video's not over yet. We got one more to go. Okay, time to the final one. Let's go. Let's go to the final one. Tealerland is crazy in the amount of detail these animatronics have, along with how unique they are as well. I know I said that like 100 times in this video, but like, just look at these ones and you'll see what I mean. This game has a lot of animatronics as well, but we are only going to take a look at 3 of them. Those being Tealer, Frill, and Deter. Tealer is a dragon animatronic. I mean, just look at him. Like, bro is so cool. Like, we've never seen a dragon animatronic before until this, I think. He wears a jester hat and wears medieval clothing, which has the same color scheme as Photo Negative Mickey. He also carries an axe, which might explain why he has blood on him. Frill is a lizard that dresses up like a knight. He carries a sword and has a very menacing look on his face. I mean, I don't know what else to say about him. He's a knight and he looks sweet. Deterrent is an amalgamation of almost every animatronic in this game, having characteristics seen on other characters. They are dragon creatures, one holding an axe while the other holds a sharp blade attached to their arm. As you can see, they do share many details seen in the animatronics we just looked at, and it blends them together very well. This game is super underrated and so are the animatronics from it, so hopefully this video will show some appreciation towards it and its characters. Ever since FNAF released over 10 years ago, the game franchise has garnered a wide and diverse audience of fans all across the world, and regardless of if you joined the fanbase in 2014 or recently, the love us fans have for the games is something most other gaming fanbases can't compare to. But with FNAF turning 11 years old in the next couple of weeks, a lot of things relating to the franchise, whether it be the games, books, teasers, trailers, or all the fan-made content, is now going to also be turning 11 years old too. So now is as good as a time as ever to reminisce on all the things that made us FNAF fans fall in love with the series, and take a look into many of the things that we might have forgotten about the games and the community over the past 11 years. So regardless of if you're brand new to the series, or a veteran to it, this is the FNAF Nostalgia Iceberg Explained, where me and a few other FNAF YouTubers go over some of the most nostalgic pieces of FNAF content from way back in the day, ranging from the OG songs, animations, fan games, theories, and so much more. So if you need something to listen to in the background while you work, or need something to go to sleep to while simultaneously educating yourself and reminiscing on everything there is to know about FNAF nostalgia, then this is the perfect video for you. Now, I don't think I need to explain what an iceberg is, since everyone should know what one is at this point, so I'm not going to bother to do so. But before I do get into the iceberg, I just want to thank all the YouTubers on screen right now who helped me research and collaborated with me on this project, as their help, along with their own memories and feelings of nostalgia, helped make this video be made and feel even more personal, and more nostalgic for me, and I'm sure it will with you too. Anyways, timestamps are available if you want to skip to certain segments or if you need to rewatch. But anyways, make sure to subscribe if you love iceberg videos, and let's get into it. FNAF teasers. Now, to start off the iceberg, I don't think there's a more appropriate entry to talk about rather than the early FNAF teasers that were posted on the Scott Cawthon's website, scottgames.com, from 2014 to 2018. With there being over 200 teasers posted on the Scott's website from 2014 to when he retired, there is a lot to take in, but the most nostalgic ones are the ones that were posted for FNAF 2, 3, 4, World, and Sister Location, as these ones captured the mysterious and secretive vibe the best out of all teasers posted onto his website, with many of these ones needing to be brightened up to actually see what was featured in said teasers. Obviously, we have the classics, like the first FNAF 2 teaser with Withered Freddy, the FNAF 3 one with Springtrap hidden in the darkness, which people thought was another animatronic called Salvage or Fredtrap back in the day. Plus, we also got the FNAF 4 ones which featured the Nightmare animatronics. Then of course, we also got the Halloween update ones for FNAF 4, along with the awesome FNAF World ones, and after that, the Sister Location ones. I just remember when the FNAF 2 to FNAF 4 ones began releasing, because whenever one would drop, you'd have YouTubers like Dawko, FusionZ Gamer, XX Pro Class Gamer XX, along with a few other people immediately dropping a 10-minute video explaining what this could mean for the game. Like, I remember some days when I would just come home from school and I would just see that one of them made a video theorizing on what was in these teasers, and honestly, it was just some of the best parts of my childhood. Looking forward to watching these videos about these teasers. Like this FNAF 2 Foxy one, I vividly remember when people thought that this was a screenshot of a free roam mode that would be in FNAF 2, and that this teaser took place in the back room of the pizzeria, where the night guard was hiding from Foxy. Of course, this wasn't true, but oh boy did 10-year-old me not care. All I cared about was hearing the theories of what could have been seen in the next games. I also remember the same thing happening for the FNAF 2 teaser of the prize counter area, where the puppet is seen coming out of the box, because when it released, people didn't know what it was, but we didn't even need to theorize on it because a couple hours later, Scott dropped FNAF 2 anyways. Then when the first FNAF 3 teaser dropped, well, don't even get me started. All of these teasers give me very fond memories of when FNAF was in its Wild West days, and honestly, I'll never forget these memories. But I'll also never forget the trailers, which are well in the next layer. FNAF trailers. Now, just like the teasers, I still remember where I was when they released, along with all the videos, theories, etc. that would come out right after one of these trailers would drop, and it was too some of the most nostalgic memories I have in my life. Personally, the only trailers I find nostalgic are the ones pre-Steel Wool era, So that includes the FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, and sister location ones. Mainly because, again, the same with the teasers, they just have a special unique Scott Cawthon charm to them. I don't know how else to put it. They all just have that early Click Team Scott Cawthon aesthetic to them. They are dark, slow, suspenseful, and at times they even feel a little bit gritty in a way, mainly with the FNAF 1, 2, and 3 trailers. They aren't overproduced, and they help to build around 95% of the hype around these games each time a trailer released, with the 5% of the hype coming from the teasers and YouTube videos made about them. I don't think I really need to explain these trailers, as I am sure that everyone has seen them at least once or twice, and if not, you have at least seen clips of them, as some of these trailers, just like the teasers, sparked a lot of theories in the early days of FNAF's existence, like in the FNAF 2 trailer, where when Withered Foxy jump scares the player, people thought he was saying freedom, as if he was escaping the pizzeria by killing the night guard. Some of these trailers, primarily the FNAF 1 trailer, also sparked some rumors as well, with there being claims of an alternative FNAF 1 trailer that showed a different endoskeleton at the part where Bonnie takes his face off, which also helped fuel the popularity of the games, as the mystery along with the lore was also a big reason the game got so popular. But I have full entries for those later on in this iceberg, but let's look a little bit deeper into the game's popularity and how it got popular in the next entry. Markiplier. Obviously, I don't need to explain who this is or why he is here, because any FNAF fan from 2014 to 2017, hell, even to today, can probably blame Markiplier for the reason they are into FNAF, as is the reason I am into FNAF. His FNAF videos, especially the ones about FNAF 1 and 2, are a big reason the franchise got as big as it did, as his videos are some of the most popular about the game to ever be posted onto YouTube or just onto the internet ever, even 10 years later. From his thumbnails, video formats, and almost daily uploads, each of these videos were again another blessing for me to look forward to after a long day of elementary school, and if not for him and his videos about FNAF, I might not have even become a YouTuber, because if I was never introduced into FNAF, I don't know where I'd be right now, because I wouldn't know the amazing people I do now, along with having you guys as an audience, because simply I just don't think I would be a YouTuber. I still remember exactly where I was when I first saw Markiplier's first FNAF video come up on YouTube, and it's one of the most prominent memories I'll ever have about FNAF. I was at my sister's house, and after me and a couple of my family members stopped playing together or roughhousing or whatever we were doing, I can't remember, I remember sitting on her couch and I opened my terrible old Android phone and went onto YouTube, where I saw that Markiplier posted "Warning, scariest game in years, Five Nights at Freddy's Part 1, just an hour before, where upon seeing that title, I was instantly intrigued on what the game was, and ever since that day, I was hooked, and over the next 2 weeks, I would eagerly wait for his next FNAF videos to release, and this is when FNAF was born. So yeah, what I'm trying to say here is that Markiplier is the main reason a lot of people, including me, know about FNAF, and he is the reason it is popular as it is today. Looking through the comments of these videos, and even the trailers, you still see people even to this day commenting on these videos saying stuff about how nostalgic these videos are for them, and that they come back to them from time to time as they are comforting in a way, probably because of the nostalgia these videos bring them. But I think the same can also be said for the next entry. Oh yeah, and I also can't forget that Markiplier was one of the first people to beat 420 mode in FNAF 1, along with like the rest of the challenges in the FNAF series, you know, hence why he's the king of FNAF, and also kind of created Golden Freddy in a way by naming him, well, Golden Freddy. Anyways, yeah, next entry. FNAF songs. You can't mention FNAF nostalgia without mentioning the music, with FNAF songs being one of the main reasons for the game's success, as many songs with the artists of said songs ranging from The Living Tombstone, Try Hard Ninja, Madame Macabre, Save Maxwell, Nate Wants a Battle, CG5, Groundbreaking, JT Music, and so many more being the main heavy hitters for the niche as a whole, creating some of the most popular and memorable songs about FNAF to ever exist. There is so much to say about these artists, and the milestones they set with their songs, and even though it would take too long to go over each of these artists individually, there are some that will be brought up again later in later entries that will be, you know, I'll be able to go over more information and talk about them there instead. I mean, geez, the more I think about FNAF songs and the people who created them, the more names just keep popping into my head. It's honestly so impressive how the community has used the music to shape itself and also express its creativity and love for the series in audio form. Again, I still have exact memories of me listening to some of these songs, and memories that still haven't faded, as I remember multiple occurrences in my mind of where I would just be listening to these songs while sitting on my couch or while rebuilding the FNAF pizzeria in Minecraft and stuff, and so many more situations like these. There are literally so many songs out there that it would need to be a completely separate video to go over each of them, along with the specific artist and so on. But let me say that Tryhard Ninja has got to be one of the most underrated artists to ever make FNAF music. Sure, The Living Tombstone is great, and there's no denying that, but if you were a FNAF fan from 2014 to 2017, you would know that bro was on a generational run with his songs, as each of them were absolute bangers, especially It's Me and Circus of the Dead. Say Maxwell also had a song that cooked extremely, and was extremely underrated, and still is, with that being their Five Nights at Freddy's 2 song, because even though I can't play it in the video for copyright reasons, it had to be one of the hardest beats out of any FNAF song to ever exist around that time, even in today's standards. I mean, I could just yap and yap and yap for hours about these songs, in the way that they tell the game's stories, and how they interpret things, and etc. But there are still a few more music related entries in this video, so I'll just wait until we get to some of those, or else this entry would be a couple hours long, just like how the next entry would have. FNAF Hoaxes. FNAF Hoaxes, one of the best things to ever exist in the world of gaming, and I don't even know where to begin. Ever since FNAF's inception, hoaxes and rumors plague the franchise, with each hoax perfectly blending into the already mysterious nature of the games. But of course, the reason they are on this iceberg is because of how nostalgic many of them are, mainly because a majority of them, like Sparky the Dog and the Purple Guy Animatronic, are some of the first and most popular ones to ever exist. Also, shout out to Roxo1987, the creator of the Purple Guy Animatronic. I see you subscribed to my channel. Bro literally created a part of my childhood, and now he is like subscribed to me and follows me on Twitter and stuff. Absolute legend. It's awesome to see that. Now, obviously, there are way more hoaxes in the franchise, with some more being Fred Trap, as I mentioned earlier, Nightmare JJ, and just literally hundreds more. I can't go over all of them or even begin to say all of them. These hoaxes, like primarily the Purple Guy Animatronic, scared me so bad as a kid, but also intrigued me, and is the reason I have over 50 plus hours on FNAF 2, because as a kid, I remember trying to find him in my game while I played on my mom's laptop, and I was just so intrigued by it. Every video that would come out about the Purple Guy or even any other FNAF 2 hoax, I would just watch immediately to afterwards then try to find it. Ah, good times. I miss those days. Also, I have a couple of other videos on my channel, like the FNAF Hoax Supercut, where I go over tons of FNAF hoaxes, from the most nostalgic ones to some of the newer ones. So if you want to see a more in-depth look into FNAF hoaxes, then I will link it at the end of this video. But anyways, next entry. The Living Tombstone. The Living Tombstone doesn't need an introduction, just like how Markiplier didn't, because every FNAF fan, and even the non-FNAF fans, know who this is, and know why they are on this iceberg. The Living Tombstone is the creator and basically is the pioneer for all FNAF fan songs that were ever made, as their music has quite literally revolutionized the FNAF genre as a whole, with their music being so iconic that their FNAF 1 song was obviously featured in the FNAF movie's credits. And well, I think they're probably, I don't know, their FNAF 2 and 3 songs will also be featured in, well, the second and third movie. Honestly, there isn't much to say except that any FNAF fan has listened to at least one of their songs, whether it be in the background of a video, at a concert, or by actively listening to it on Spotify or YouTube or something. Everyone knows who they are, and the impact they had on the FNAF community, and even other gaming communities as well. These guys are legends in their own accord, and honestly, this entry doesn't even do them justice. FNAF fan games. Five Nights at Treasure Island, One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Candy's, Five Nights at Fuckboys, Five Nights at Wario's, The Return of the Freddy's, The Joy of Creation, and so many more are some of the first FNAF fan games to come to mind when going over nostalgic FNAF fan games. And honestly, it's kinda crazy how many were made from 2014 to 2016. These games were staples and again, pioneers for almost all future FNAF fan games that would proceed to come out afterwards, as these games took the formula that made FNAF work and decided to give them their own twist, with Five Nights at Treasure Island being based off of a Disney creepypasta, Flumpty's taking place in one night, and being based on fairy tale characters, Fuckboys being a shitpost RPG game about FNAF, and literally all these games recreating FNAF in their own unique ways. FNAF's simplicity is what allowed all these games to be made, and because of that, a lot of people were able to create fan games, especially right after the first game came out. And since they came out around the same time FNAF began to get popular, many YouTubers that played FNAF also played these fan games, which also helped many people get introduced into the franchise. Honestly, there are so many FNAF fan games from around 2015 that going over them would also need to be a separate video. But all that needs to be said about these games is that they led a giant movement in the community, and because of that, FNAF fan games are still being made to this day, with even some of them officially being licensed by Scott Cawthon, which is awesome. FNAF Easter eggs. Now, personally, this entry is only applicable for the first 4 games in my opinion, as the rest of the Easter eggs in the FNAF franchise just aren't as nostalgic or even iconic as the ones from the first 4 games, and mainly it's just because of how many these games had. Each of these games had over 10 completely separate and unique Easter eggs in them, which is a lot considering the amount of gameplay these games had, with a majority of them just being rare camera screens, hidden animatronics, and unique objects that would be seen inside the pizzeria/building. Many people consider these Easter eggs, especially the rare screens and rare camera screens, the most nostalgic, as you would see these everywhere whenever you would go on YouTube, as so many people would make videos and theories about what these Easter eggs could mean and if there was more hidden lore about them. I know anyone who was a FNAF fan back in 2015 remembers the Smike videos that would be like the, I don't know, what was it, like the top 10 FNAF Easter eggs or something along these lines, as these videos would always feature a screenshot of an Easter egg for the thumbnail, and in the video he would always say incorrect information about the Easter eggs and stuff. I don't know, I just remember that. It's fond memory for me. Don't worry though, he's in another segment in this video and we go over a little bit more, in depth with him, so don't worry guys, he's coming up soon. But yeah, these Easter eggs were a huge part of what made FNAF popular as well, and made me like it, as they helped me make the game feel even more mysterious, which combined with the lore, made the games just more intriguing to me. And speaking about lore, let's get to the next entry. FNAF lore. FNAF lore, I don't even, where do I begin here? Well, I guess I can start by saying that this is before it was completely destroyed, and before any major retcons existed, before the sci-fi elements existed, and before the Mimic came in, along with the books. FNAF 1 to FNAF 3, in my opinion, was perfect lore, and honestly it worked, and it felt a little bit more grounded compared to modern FNAF, and even though we had spooky ghost children, Springtrap, and just, well, obviously animatronics that moved on their own, it worked, and was honestly pretty spooky. This was a time when only the Bite of 87 existed, and when people thought the purple guy was named Vincent for some reason. Even though the lore was still flawed, it felt way more concise and was a bit more ambiguous on what the story was, and how certain things worked, like the animatronics moving, and how William Afton was still alive in Springtrap. This helped make the story feel a bit more personalized in a way, as any theory around this time could have been true until after FNAF 4, Sister Location, and the rest of the games came out, where they tried to solve all the questions about the lore, which made it lose its mystery and ambiguous nature, along with the retcons that destroyed all the previous lore. I may be biased, but I don't care. I liked what FNAF was originally about, and I liked the mystery of it from back in the day, because the FNAF 3 ending was peak, and sure, FNAF 6 was also a great ending, but FNAF 3 just felt better, it just felt more complete. The lore was still a mystery, and because of that, I feel like it helped with the horror. But that's not what we have, so all we can do is just reminisce on when FNAF was a little bit more simple, and not as complicated as it is today. FNAF animations.
Okay, do I really even need to say anything for this entry? FNAF animations are one of the main reasons for the popularity of FNAF today. I mean, we got 5 AM at Freddy's, Fortnite at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's Troll Palace, and of course the thousands of other ones including 2D animations, SFM animations, and even Minecraft FNAF parodies, all within the span of 2 years since the first FNAF game was released. These animations include character personalities created by fans, such as Balloon Boy loving AA batteries from 5 AM at Freddy's, Chica's love for pizza, which even though it was originally shown in How to Make FNAF Not Scary, FNAF animations have pushed the meme further, to include Chica saying pizza in Security Breach and eating garbage. Yes, I wish I were joking. Looking up FNAF animations on Google, there are over 1.7 million results. Now, just let that sink in. Now, due to so many fan-made videos and animations of FNAF, it's pretty hard to keep track of them all and go over them, just due to the sheer amount of them on the internet. But they still need to be brought up, just like the other pieces of FNAF media were, because even though not many people think about it like this, FNAF became popular because of the amount of community content made about the games, and it's nice to give some of the OGs some recognition. As much as I'd love to talk about FNAF animations all day, I'd like to thank Gavin for having me in this video, and let's move on to layer 2.
Fan-made models. Now, before we had good models of the FNAF animatronics for animations, fan games, and etc., we had models that were, well, to put it, I guess honestly, they were bad, but they were charming in their own right. Mainly, I am referring to the Splink models that came out in late 2014, which was seen primarily in Gary's mod videos, animations, and basically anything that was related to SFM. We also had a couple more early models of FNAF animatronics, with some of those including the early versions of the FNAF 2 animatronics, FNAF 3 Springtrap, and even the FNAF 4 ones. Plus, you can't forget those weird anime ones that seemingly don't exist on the internet anymore, and oh yeah, also we had the draw kills. Unfortunately, I don't remember all the actual names of these ones, if they even had any, but if you know what I am talking about, then you know what I mean. Along with these fan models, we also had a lot of Roblox and Minecraft iterations of them too, which were all very different for each game, or the mod, or whatever it was, and etc. But these also existed very early on in FNAF's life, with some of these models existing just days after the first game was released. Because of this, we also got very early maps of the pizzeria for FNAF 1 and 2, which we will also be going over a little bit more in depth in another entry, but don't worry, I am not going to forget all the pizzeria maps and all that stuff that was, you know, in FNAF's early days. But anyways, let's get to the next entry. FNAF World Hate. Remember when FNAF World was universally hated by the FNAF community when it was announced and released? Well, I do, and no, it wasn't universally loved like how it is today, because even though it may seem like everyone loves the game now, it wasn't always like this, because when the game first came out, almost everyone in the community hated it, mainly because it was not a typical FNAF game, and was different. The hate got so bad to the point to where Scott actually released a teaser onto his website, where it features Toy Foxy from FNAF World hanging from what appears to be a noose, but that's until you look closer into the image, where you can see that they actually have a string in their mouth, with text on the bottom that says "See what you've done," which was directly targeted towards the people hating on the game. Even though as years passed, people began to look at the game in a more positive light due to rose-tinted glasses or whatever it was, I still will never forget y'all for hating on Scott's passion project like this, because even though it wasn't quote-unquote typical FNAF, it was still a part of FNAF regardless, and Scott clearly put a lot of time and effort into it, but at least things are different now. But still, I'm not forgiving y'all. If you hated FNAF World back in the day and made Scott all depressed and stuff, I hate you. FNAF Creepypastas.
Many FNAF fans may not be aware that between 2014 and 2015, FNAF actually had a lot of creepypastas written about the game's lore and assortment of characters. One of the most popular FNAF creepypastas was the Hidden Lore series by Mr. Creepypasta. He and a few other YouTubers collaborated to tell a creepypasta story in a format similar to an audio drama. He also narrated a similar creepypasta titled The Real Chuck E. Cheese. The popularity of these creepypastas helped form the way for more FNAF creepypastas to be made. Even though the Hidden Lore series is one of the most popular to date, there were still multiple stories that came out around that time, with some now unlisted, deleted, privated, and even being lost media. But even now, some people are still making creepypasta stories about FNAF, and regardless of the quality, it's really nice to see that people are still making them.
Dr. Creepypasta.
This entry will likely resonate with many of you older FNAF fans out there. On March 4th, 2015, a YouTuber by the name of Dr. Creepypasta uploaded a video titled Real Freddy Fazbear. In this video, he showed off a real-life Freddy Fazbear animatronic. This was one of the first ever fan-made FNAF animatronics on YouTube. He then proceeded to upload more videos highlighting the animatronic's movements while performing an assortment of songs and sound effects from the games. Then about a year later, on August 16th, 2015, he uploaded a video titled The Five Nights at Freddy's Band First Look. In this video, Dr. Creepypasta showed off real-life animatronic versions of Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Springtrap. He even had them in front of a stage resembling the one from the first FNAF game. These are likely the first FNAF animatronics ever made. He then made a separate video highlighting each of the newly created animatronics, showing off all their individual movements as they performed a variety of speaking parts. He continued to make videos up until November 24th, 2017, when he then seemingly disappeared from the face of YouTube. That is, until his recent return in February, when he uploaded a video explaining where he and his animatronics have been. He has now returned to making videos with the original animatronics, as well as other horror-themed videos in general. If you're interested in hearing more about Dr. Creepypasta and where I've been, oh yeah, by the way, I'm Dr. Creepypasta. I probably should have said that earlier. Anyways, you can check out the interview that I had with Gavin that will be featured at the end of this video.
XX Pro Class Gamer XX. This is a name I'm sure many of you haven't heard in a very long time, as XX Pro Class Gamer XX was one of the first original FNAF YouTubers to ever exist, alongside Dawko and Fusion Z Gamer. Pro Class was one of the couple of YouTubers who made the videos I was talking about in the teaser and trailer entries, as his videos were primarily about going over these things, along with going over the game's Easter eggs, theories, and so much more. He would also play many early fan games, along with playing FNAF Gmod with Dawko, which were some of my favorite videos from him. He even rescued a chicken which he named Chica, which would appear in some of his vlogs and YouTube videos. But in around 2016, if I'm correct, his house caught fire and Chica unfortunately passed away, and his channel kept getting demonetized, which all caused him to leave YouTube. But fortunately, he has made a small return and is still alive and doing well. Honestly, his videos were the best and were some of the most funny. He was straight to the point and his theories were always something I looked forward to watching after I got home from school. Honestly, I hope he is doing fine after everything that happened to him, and luckily for me, I was actually able to talk to Dawko during PAX West last year about how he is doing, and Dawko said that he is doing alright and that they talk occasionally, which makes me happy. FNAF fan theories. I think all I need to say for this entry is, well, game theory, because oh boy did MatPat opens Pandora's box with his first theory video. But he wasn't the only one making theories back in the day, because we also had theories such as Nazis made the animatronics theory, or the Mike kill all theory, or who could forget the Foxy is a good guy theory. The amount of theories back then was ridiculous, but were still better than the majority of the theories nowadays. Actually, I lied, both were equally as bad, but the older theories had more charm though in my opinion, except for a few like the Nazi one and the MatPat's first theory. Remember when he thought FNAF was based on a real shooting? I do, because who else but MatPat would think of something just so stupid? I mean, I guess if it was going to be anyone, of course it would be him. I don't even know what else to say for this entry, but yeah, FNAF had some wild theories back in the day, and a lot of them have helped actually formulate the story somehow and help develop it a bit by giving Scott ideas to further improve upon or actually add later down the line, which is pretty neat, I guess. You are a pirate. If the song used in every one of these videos wasn't copyrighted, I would have just played a video of this and that would have been it for this section. But since the song is from the Lazy Town show, of course it is. Now, You Are a Pirate is one of the first memes to come out about FNAF, where in these memes, you would see Foxy from either FNAF 1 or 2, where in these videos, whether it be an animation or a clip from his jump scare or anything relating to Foxy, these videos would play this song, where the first part of the song goes, You Are a Pirate, and that was it. Some of these videos would feature the full song, or other various memes or characters related to FNAF, but the idea was always the same. Show a video or clip of Foxy while playing this part of the song, and that was it. And now it's a piece of FNAF history as one of FNAF's most old, iconic, and best memes ever made. Gmod models / maps. Now this entry is very similar to the entry earlier about the fan-made models for the animatronics, except that this entry is more about the fan-made Gmod maps about the pizzerias rather than the models, because these maps also need to get recognition due to how iconic they are. As I mentioned in previous entries too, you'd see these maps being played by YouTubers like Pro Class Gamer, along with a few others who are also featured in this iceberg later on. But what made these maps so important and special is the fact that these maps were some of the first maps to ever show a 3D fully explorable version of the pizzerias, which allowed for many people to actually get an idea for what the full pizzerias would look like. These maps also included various secrets, and some even allowed actual FNAF-like gameplay, where you could fend off against the animatronics and actually try to survive the night. Some of these maps also had multiplayer versions, where one person could control the animatronics, where another would try to survive against the onslaught thought of attacks. These maps were so fun to play on, especially as a kid, because when I was a kid, I remember asking my mom to buy me Gmod so I could just specifically play on these maps, and basically roleplay as the security guard trying to survive. Hell, I would even make up completely crazy and unique scenarios with the animatronics in these maps, like recreating the Bite of 87, the FNAF 1 death screen, and just so much more. These maps, along with the FNAF games themselves, are literally the reason I have Steam, because if not for these things, I would not have any other reason to play the game, especially playing it alone. But these things were some of the reasons I had a great childhood. Foxy running meme. Just like the "you are a pirate" meme, this one could have just sufficed with a video, but again, due to copyright, I can't show it. But this meme was about Foxy's running down the hall animation, where people absolutely memed the hell out of it, with the most popular version of it featuring this animation of Foxy running down the hall from FNAF 1, with the song "Break My Stride" by Matthew Wilder playing in the background, with some of the videos also featuring a caption about killing the night guard, or something along those lines. Yeah, that's about it for this one, but I mean, it's a simple meme, and was too one of the first to come out about FNAF, and its age definitely shows from a lot of these memes. But it's something that I think a lot of people have forgotten about since a lot more popular FNAF memes exist now. FNAF merch. Over the years, the one thing that has continuously been made, whether it be plushies, figures, clothes, or other accessories, have been all the pieces of FNAF merchandise, with some of the first pieces of FNAF merch coming out just months after the first game, with some of the first pieces of merch being the Sanchi plushies, Funko plushies, and the UCC keyring figures and plushies. Luckily, I was able to pick up the Sanchi plushies and the Funko ones last year at PAX and at Hot Topic due to each company re-releasing and selling some of the old stock they had of these plushies, which was amazing because I sold my only FNAF plushies I've ever owned, with those being the Funko ones at like a garage sale like 7 years ago when I was a kid, because just FNAF wasn't cool anymore and they had like stuff all over them and whatnot. These pieces of merch are highly nostalgic, as these are some of the best and most iconic pieces of FNAF merch ever made, and are way better than all the stupid reskins that are made now. The only part that sucks now is that almost every OG piece of FNAF merch is extremely overpriced now. Like the early Funko Pops now cost anywhere from $50 to $250, depending on the pop, which is just wild. But yeah, even though I don't know a lot about FNAF merchandise, I wish we could see more re-releases of early FNAF merchandise, because it's some of my favorites. But with that being said, let's move on to layer 3. Smike.
Smike is a FNAF YouTuber that has been forgotten by many due to time, but his impact on the community will never be forgotten. If you're not an OG FNAF fan or just don't know who Smike is, he was one of the most popular FNAF YouTubers in the early days, from like 2015 to 2017. His content was mostly top 10 videos, but he also had some extremely popular songs posted on his channel, like the original music video for It's Me by the Try Hard Ninja, which Smike actually had a hand in making. Not only that, but this dude was so well known in the FNAF community that there's actually a reference to him in Five Nights at Candy's 3 with a teddy bear dressed like his profile picture. With how popular this guy was, you may be wondering what happened to him and why he's pretty much forgotten now. This is because he has actually been through some controversy. Back in the day, he never actually played the FNAF games, but still posted videos about them, which led to pretty low effort content with a bunch of false information. He also stole a bunch of people's art without crediting them, and he eventually got cancelled because of this. It also led to his channel getting demonetized, so he eventually took down some of the content and re-uploaded it without the stolen art. After that, he kind of just disappeared from the internet, not really posting anything at all since then, and he's also changed his profile picture to a bowl of cereal. He did post a video about Poppy Playtime somewhat recently, but that's about it. His channel is pretty much dead now. However, his legacy will definitely live on. He had a huge impact on the FNAF community, and I will certainly never forget about him. Kind of sounds like I'm talking about a dead guy. He's very much still alive, I think.
FNAF OCs. FNAF OCs is something that doesn't really exist as much today, but back when FNAF was brand new, you would see a lot of these, with there being tons of different variants and designs people made regarding the animatronics, with the majority being forgotten due to time. There isn't really too much to say in this entry. I mainly just put it here as a reminder that yes, these were very prominent back in the day, and that instead of there being a lot of fan animatronics, there were actually more FNAF OCs rather than those. I can't remember if there were actually any good ones out there, because the majority of the ones my 10 to 12-year-old mind remembers are the really ugly and terrible drawings and stuff that were made, but regardless, I thought I'd have to fit it in here somewhere as they are still pretty nostalgic. FNAF demos / mobile. Now, if you were anything like me as a kid and didn't have a computer, or if your parents didn't want to spend money on buying FNAF for you, this is where you most likely ended up. Before I was able to convince my mom on having me use her computer to play games on, this is how I played FNAF, and whenever I wasn't with her and couldn't play the game, I would just instead either watch YouTube videos of FNAF or play the demos for the game on my phone. These versions were the exact same as the PC versions, except the mobile versions had what I felt was easier gameplay and obviously just touchscreen controls to play with. The demos, on the other hand, though, were a little bit different, because these versions had the same gameplay, but were missing features, such as the fact you couldn't progress past night 3, and that again, the gameplay felt different. These games were such a big part of my childhood, mainly because this was my first time ever playing a FNAF game on my phone, and because these versions just stick out in my memory because of the differences they had compared to the normal PC ports. Vanoss FNAF Gmod. Again, no introduction is needed, as everyone should know who Vanoss Gaming is, and if you don't, I am either getting super old or you live under a rock. This entry is about his couple of FNAF Gmod videos that showed him and his friends messing around on the maps, basically just being stupid and having fun. These videos are some of his most popular and arguably some of the best ever made, just because of how funny they are. Yes, I know he posted a few Left 4 Dead FNAF videos as well, along with a few other ones and stuff, but honestly, those videos can fall under this category as well, since the maps they played on were the same Gmod FNAF map for the most part. But yeah, not much to really say here except that these videos were absolutely amazing and were also a huge part of a lot of people's childhoods, and might also be some of people's first memories of FNAF. Who knows? Speed paint edits. Speed paint edits are something I never really watched back in the day, but I know it's something a lot of people did, and it was hard to avoid these because of how many people made videos regarding this around FNAF's early days. I remember a lot of people made videos about these, or just posted them speed painting various OCs, FNAF animatronics, hoaxes, and basically anything that was FNAF. Even nowadays, you can still see people post videos about these on YouTube, and post speed edits of actual renders and stuff now, which is honestly a big step up compared to the paint stuff, because even though that is still very cool, let's be real here, seeing people speedrun making FNAF games and renders and I don't know, just stuff like that is just way cooler than the paints and stuff. Anyways, next entry. PewDiePie.
I'm sure most of you know who PewDiePie is, but probably don't think of him as a FNAF YouTuber. However, he has actually made content about Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, back in the day, he played the first 4 FNAF games, but not many people really remember it because they weren't extremely popular. He was a few months late to the game, and they weren't really too iconic. I do remember watching them back in the day. I think I enjoyed them, but I don't really remember too much other than he didn't know the character's name, so he called I think Bonnie, he called Ruben or something like that. And his thumbnails were not FNAF. I think he had a white bunny with blood on his face as one of the thumbnails, which was interesting. In the videos though, he did not seem to enjoy the games. He talked about how he thought they weren't scary and he thought the concept was boring, so that's probably why he ended up stopping after the 5th game. And if you have watched these videos, you may be wondering, what do you mean the 5th game? He only made videos about the first 4 FNAF games. But what you may not know is he did actually make a video about Sister Location when it released. He had a Markiplier mustache on, and he basically just mimicked Markiplier throughout the video. It was pretty boring compared to his other playthroughs. Not the best, so he did actually end up deleting it and stopped making videos about FNAF after that. However, another thing is in Scared PewDiePie, a series he made basically going through haunted houses. Episode 6 was called The Ultimate Hang and featured a FNAF-style haunted house where he was in an arcade and these people in mascot costumes tried to kill him. There was also Matt Pat and I believe the Game Grumps there as well. So if you were a big FNAF fan back in the day, you may remember PewDiePie's old videos. I sure do, but if you've never seen them, there's some information.
Venturian Tale. Another relic from the past, Venturian Tale was a group of YouTubers that would post Gmod videos of them messing around, reenacting certain scenarios, showcasing mods, and so much more. I never really watched them, but I do remember seeing a couple of their videos back in the day, and honestly, I don't know why I never really got into their content, because looking back on it now, it looks like something I would have really enjoyed. Alongside their extremely popular Gmod videos, they also posted Let's Plays of the FNAF games all the way up until about FNAF 6, where around that time, they eventually stopped posting FNAF videos and videos altogether. I see why many people find them nostalgic though. They captured early FNAF along with early YouTube really well, and watching their videos almost feels like watching a time capsule in a way. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything else to say, but I do know that, well, you guys probably do. So if you guys have any experiences or any of your favorite videos you want to talk about in the comments, feel free to, because just honestly, I never really watched them, so I can't really, say too much about them except for, well, everything I just did. Madame Macabre. Now, there is only one reason Madame Macabre is on this list, and it's because of her insanely underrated FNAF songs that I feel like no one remembers, which is honestly super depressing because her songs like Welcome to Freddy's are some of the best FNAF songs ever made. Even though she never really made FNAF videos except for these songs, her impact and legacy for her couple of FNAF songs will never be forgotten, and will always hold a special place in my heart. Unfortunately, there isn't really a lot of information about her online regarding FNAF as well. She's still posting nowadays and actually posted a video a couple days ago talking about, coming back to YouTube and stuff, but she was never really a FNAF YouTuber, same like with Vanoss and all those guys. So she doesn't really have much to really, talk about regarding FNAF, but she's still doing fine, which is good to see. FNAF Fright Dome.
Fright Dome is something that's been talked about a lot on the internet, especially on this channel, but it's for a good reason, as the FNAF Fright Dome was the first officially licensed FNAF themed haunted house to ever exist, and was available to visit for 1 year before inevitably being shut down. There's a lot to go over about it, like the fact that this attraction is now technically lost media, the fact that there isn't really any online footage of it in operation, along with so many more things. This whole attraction is honestly a huge rabbit hole to go down, just because of how mysteriously it vanished and because of how little footage of it exists online. But even though there isn't a lot of information about it online, there are a few videos posted on this channel that go over everything that is, which will be linked at the end of this video. When I went to the Fright Dome when I was 11 years old, the line for the FNAF attraction was over an hour long, being the longest line in that hotel by far. As we entered the haunted house, we were greeted by an attendant dressed as a guard who walked us through the maze. When I first entered, I got an aroma of something rotten or burnt, which was added on purpose. The rest of my experience is exactly what you can see on the internet. However, something that I saw that no one else has ever captured or talked about is that Spring Bonnie himself was in the maze. And no, not Springtrap, I do mean Spring Bonnie. He was bright yellow and he popped out of the covered curtain to jumpscare the audience. The only evidence I have of Spring Bonnie being there is this mascot costume that's being sold of him, that is made by the same people that made the Fright Dome suits. The Fright Dome experience was cool, especially for its time. However, I just know Halloween Horror Nights is going to top it in every way possible.
SMG4.
Now, you may be asking yourself, what is an SMG4? And safe to say, SMG4 is someone who's gonna be a bit hard to explain, especially if you have no idea who they are. But just like the previous entries, if you do know who they are, you definitely know why. For those who don't know, SMG4 is a YouTuber who mainly posts animations and skits, usually evolving around the character of Mario and the original character SMG4 and the rest of the gang, and is also a member of Glitch Production, who makes the viral YouTube series The Amazing Digital Circus. But back around 10 years ago, they were a very different channel, like very different. And around this time, they also made a couple of Five Nights at Freddy's related videos, where Myuu and the gang were put into various situations related to FNAF 1, 2, and 3, where in these videos, well, basically all hell breaks loose. And honestly, if you've never watched them, you just have to in order to understand what I'm talking about. These videos were practically some of the earliest forms of brain rot imaginable, featuring characters such as Chica being a bit too obsessed with pizza, and Freddy being interesting, to say the least. and this combined with all the swearing and other inappropriate activities that can be seen in said videos probably weren't good for any of us viewers at the time. But let's be real here, we were all probably way too young to be watching these videos anyways. But safe to say, nothing was funnier as a kid than watching Myuu fight off the animatronics, which, safe to say, weren't possessed by the missing children. SMG4 really showed off FNAF Gmod in my opinion, and was definitely a massive influence on the FNAF animations and skits that came in the later years, and it's definitely something that you will never forget once you see it. But with that being said, let's move on to Layer 4.
Riskrim. Riskrim is another YouTuber who has unfortunately fallen into obscurity, but during FNAF 1 and 2, his videos were everywhere, and you could easily spot them because of his unique thumbnail style, which were unlike any others around that time. His channel primarily consisted of horror gaming videos, but when FNAF came out, he also integrated a lot of FNAF videos into his content, and he was one of the first people to actually play a majority of FNAF fan games on his channel, as a lot of his videos on his channel consist of FNAF fan games. He was a super down-to-earth guy, and he was pretty funny, which is one of the reasons I liked him and subscribed to him at the time. He was also one of the other YouTubers I would look forward to watching as a kid after school, but due to his inconsistent posting schedule after 2016, he began to fall into obscurity and is now forgotten by many. Honestly, looking back on him, he was just like any other normal Let's Player, hence why he probably kind of, fell into obscurity now, but still, his videos were really good, and he put a lot of time and effort into them, and his thumbnails are, well, they were really good and also always caught my attention, hence why I, watched him. But anyways, next entry. Chuck E. Cheese.
Now you may be asking why Chuck E. Cheese is on this iceberg, and honestly, if I were a new fan, I'd kinda be asking the same question. But if you're a FNAF fan from around 2014, you probably know why it's on this list. During FNAF 1 and 2, many people, especially younger people, correlated FNAF to Chuck E. Cheese in one way or another, whether it be because of the animatronics, pizzeria setting, or quite literally any other similar reason. When people thought of FNAF, they didn't think about William Afton, the missing children, or anything like that. They would think of Chuck E. Cheese and the influences around it, with it being so prominent. Many kids were afraid to go to the pizzeria because of the FNAF games, or were more intrigued to go because of it. When I first found out about FNAF, I got a huge interest to go check out my local Chuck E. Cheese, and I always thought the animatronics were super cool. The original FNAF game theory actually based the lore of FNAF around a real Chuck E. Cheese murder, which I find to be an interesting choice, MattPat. The idea that Chuck E. Cheese animatronics were creepy had definitely been around long before FNAF, but FNAF definitely popularized the idea. The original FNAF animatronics were all heavily inspired by places like Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza, but Chuck E. Cheese would just never embrace the idea of FNAF. They would block people on Twitter who mentioned it, and they gave their employees specific instructions on what to say if anyone brought it up to them. But even after all this, they tried to cash in on the franchise when the movie released by doing a Five Nights of Fun event. It was just a cheap knockoff. Either way, even though there definitely are similarities, they've tried their best to keep it all separate. But we can all remember a simpler time when it felt like Five Nights at Freddy's wasn't so different from a real-life restaurant.
FNAF books. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, and please don't burn me on a stake for saying this, but I never read a FNAF book in my entire life. Now, let me preface by saying that this entry isn't to hate on newer FNAF books or the books at all, or say anything bad about them, especially since I'm a little bit more ignorant to things compared to like a normal FNAF book reader, but it's on this iceberg because of the original books, like the Silver Eyes, Twisted Ones, and the Fourth Closet. These books came out when I was in elementary school, and I remember wanting them really bad, but never being able to get a chance to read it due to me never being able to buy it. Even though I never read these books, they are still super nostalgic to me due to me remembering them as a kid and seeing them in like the Scholastic book fairs and stuff. Luckily though, at PAX West last year, some of the Steel Wool employees were extremely nice to me and actually gifted me the Five Nights at Freddy's collection, which includes the 3 books in a trilogy along with a poster and a few other things, which I have yet to actually read and or open, just because of how sentimental it is to me. But I will open it one of these days and finally give these books a chance. Scrapped modes. Now, this entry is probably going to be one of the shortest in this iceberg, mainly because there isn't really any scrapped modes for the FNAF games except for FNAF 6, where there is actually planned to be an endless tycoon mode for the game, where you wouldn't fight against the animatronics at the end of the night, or anything like that, but instead you would just build pizzerias, make money, and play it like a typical Roblox tycoon game. Unfortunately, it was scrapped though, and nothing like this was ever officially made, and just everything kind of went silent on it. Simplicity. This entry is about when FNAF was more simplistic than what it is today, and how many people find FNAF's original simplicity nostalgic. What do I mean by this? Well, I mainly mean the gameplay for the games, but I guess this entry can also be referring to the lore and premise as a whole. Many people miss the point and click days, and many people miss when FNAF's lore was easy to understand and wasn't super convoluted. I'm sure there are more factors and reasons for people finding FNAF's original simplicity nostalgic, whether it be because early FNAF was simplistic already or because of other reasons, but regardless of what it actually is, the main concept is the same, with that being because of its simplicity. I too also find FNAF's simplicity nostalgic, but I don't think it's because the games were more simple. Sure, that could be a reason why, but personally I think it's just because when FNAF was simple, it was during, well, like FNAF 1, 2, and 3, when it was like, you know, nostalgic, so I think that's why people correlate the two, but who knows, I could be wrong. FNAF Roblox. Around FNAF 1, 2, 3, and 4, and hell, even Sister Location, hell, I lied, even right now, a lot of different Roblox games about FNAF were released, with many of them being very unique and different from one another. These games all had different models, textures, maps, and gameplay due to there not really being any good looking and or official models or anything related to FNAF being released at this time, which gave us a bunch of different games. One of the first FNAF Roblox games I ever remember playing came out literally days after FNAF 1 released, and I think the name of it was something like The Pizzeria or something along those lines. Actually, I just checked, it was released the same day FNAF 1 released. Somehow. I don't even know how that's possible. But yeah, looking back on it, the game's now called Animatronics Awakened, but luckily when looking it up, this game does come up, so thank God it's still here. It is completely different from what it was back when it first came out, and half of the time the game doesn't even load, but it's nice to see that it still exists, as this is the technically first FNAF Roblox game, FNAF fan game, FNAF anything like that ever made. The game was literally just a remake of FNAF 1 and was honestly not that bad for how quick it was made, even if the map and character models were kind of ugly. I also remember the game having a main menu with music that was like really good. It was like techno, it went like dun 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 dun. I don't know, it was like really good, and I can't find it anywhere on the internet, and it kind of like pisses me off to this day, but yeah, I can't find any videos of it or footage of it anywhere online. So if you guys know what I'm talking about, please like let me know what the song is, or like if you've played the game or have any footage of it, because it's like kind of lost media. There's like not really any videos of it online, and it was like the first ever FNAF fan game, Roblox game, whatever. But anyways, yeah, the game was peak, so if you know anything about it, please let me know. FNAF 3 End of Series. Remember when FNAF 3 was supposed to be the last FNAF game? I do, and we see where that ended up. Yeah, FNAF 3 was originally supposed to be the final game in the series, concluding it as a trilogy, and concluding the main storyline, leaving some mysteries unanswered to keep the story ambiguous until Scott folded and made another game, which ultimately spoiled the semi-perfect ending the franchise had. It was very bittersweet seeing all these souls of the missing children finally being laid to rest, and that ending screen along with the somber music really felt like a perfect ending to the franchise. Yes, I know I'm blinded by nostalgia, but again, I don't care. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, and this is mine. This ending was great, and it has a sweet spot deep within my heart, and it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite endings in the series. Actually, I lied. It is my favorite ending in the series, especially since the series has a couple ones. This one is my favorite, and I don't know. I still think about it sometimes. FNAF Flash games. Now, if you decide to take a different route from playing the demos, mobile edition, or full games for FNAF, there was another way to play them, and that was by looking them up on Flash websites, because back in 2014 and 2015, many of these Flash websites actually had versions of FNAF that you could just play in the browser that were like exactly one-to-one. There would be no differences, no issues, and the game would be 100% free. The only issues were these small bugs that would happen, and the fact your progress wouldn't save due to it being run on Flash, and not through Steam. I don't remember ever playing any Flash versions of FNAF, but I am sure many people have, especially during school, since these games would be all over the unblocked websites. Personally for me, what I would play on the unblocked websites was Happy Wheels, but you know, everyone's got their own, you know, choice, so. Anyways, next entry. Lost Media. FNAF has a lot of content, especially nowadays, but due to the almost endless amounts of content made about FNAF, it is almost impossible not to mention some of the franchise's lost media, and as each year passes, it becomes easier and easier for FNAF to have new pieces of lost media. But the main piece of lost media I want to specifically mention is the supposedly lost FNAF 1 trailer that was posted on the Scott Cawthon's YouTube channel, because the FNAF 1 trailer that is posted onto his channel now isn't the first one to have been posted. Originally, there was another one that came out one day before the one now seen on his channel was posted, but was shortly deleted and then replaced with the new trailer. It is said that the old trailer had different endoskeleton eyes for the scene where Bonnie takes off his mask, but this can't necessarily be confirmed due to the video, well, not being archived anywhere online before it was unlisted. It is honestly still a mystery even to this day, with no one really knowing if this trailer was different or even really kind of like existed, but I did include a bit more information about it in another video on this channel, which, like the rest, will be included at the end of this video. Scott Games. I lied earlier, this entry is actually going to be the shortest, and that's because I kind of already went over this with the first entry in this iceberg, but anyways, Scott Games is Scott Cawthon's website, where he posted all of his FNAF teasers and updates to it. Yeah, honestly, there isn't really a reason to yap about this anymore, because this is kind of all that needs to be said, so let's get to the next entry. FNAF Troll Games. FNAF Troll Games were some of my most favorite parts of FNAF back in the day. I always hated when Scott would release one of these, even though it happened like only twice, because I remember being so excited to see a new game, and then when one of these released, I thought it was actually going to be something good, like a new game, but then it would turn out to be one of these. I mainly felt this pain when Scott released the FNAF 3 Troll game, but at the end of the day, who still played it to death? Me. I did, because I didn't, what else was I gonna do? Wait for the actual game to come out? No, I was like 11 years old, so I didn't have the patience for that. So I played it anyways, and I still enjoyed and have fond memories of it. I miss when Scott wasn't retired, because even though Steel Wool is great, and they do an amazing job for the franchise, you just don't get stuff like this with them, unfortunately. Nitro Glitch. Now, Nitro Glitch is a name I don't really know if anyone knows except for like me or like a few other people, but they made a lot of FNAF mix-ups and remixes back in the day. And no, I don't mean remixes of like popular FNAF songs like The Living Tombstone or anything like that. I mean like completely original made music that also would incorporate FNAF into it, whether it be with sound effects or with the game's ambience. They found a way to insert it in. These songs were very different compared to any other FNAF songs seen in this iceberg or just kind of like ever made, but they were actually pretty good, mainly because each song was just like an EDM song, and then they would just combine like sound effects and stuff into their music. It was honestly just pretty cool. This, combined with the fact that their thumbnails were also really unique and strange, helped them stand out a lot from other FNAF songs. If you know who I'm talking about, then please comment down below, because it feels like ever since like 2017 or even 2016, everyone has just forgotten about Nitro Glitch. I mean, they were never really that popular, but like they made a lot of really good songs. I mean, he even made other songs based on other popular games around 2015, and they did pretty decent as well. Anyways, yeah, please let me know if you know who this is, or if I'm like the only one who remembers them, because like I don't see anyone talk about them anymore. Cut content. FNAF has had a lot of cut content over the years, but a lot of FNAF's cut content was later revealed to actually have been from the earlier FNAF games, with some of the most nostalgic and popular pieces of cut content being the main stage stair scream, the live system, the toxic meter, along with a ton other. Even though these pieces of early FNAF cut content might not be the most nostalgic thing, it's still a bit interesting to look back on, as a lot of these things, if implemented, could have changed FNAF as we know it, shaping the series into something completely different. Unfortunately, just like some of the early entries, this would take way too long to go over all the cut entries and cut content from way back in the earlier FNAF games, so unfortunately I can't really go over too much, but there's a bunch of videos online about, you know, all the cut content and stuff. Mandela Effect. Now this entry is the same concept as the last, just kind of, basically going over some of FNAF's Mandela effects that have happened as years passed, with the most popular one being the main stage stair from FNAF 1. Many people claim that this was in the game, but it was actually never in the code apparently, which is hard to believe because I swear I thought I have seen this happen before during gameplay. Another Mandela effect that has popped up recently is this FNAF 2 camera screen with Toy Chica, where people say that this was never in the game, but was instead just in the game's files, which I know is wrong because I have definitely seen this in game. These are the main ones and most popular ones out there about FNAF, but I'm sure that there will be a couple more to come out in the future, which will probably be lies because there is no way any more could come out about a game like FNAF, especially its early titles. Anyways, again, I want to say thanks to everyone who collabed with me to help make this video possible, along with thanks to you guys if you're still watching. FNAF is known for many things, with some of those things being its jump scares, characters, lore, and atmosphere. But FNAF pioneered the mascot horror genre and made it become what it is today, and with its influence, many people decided to make their own headcanons and stories related to the franchise. Now, I am sure I don't need to explain what an iceberg is along with what a creepypasta is, but before we take a look into this iceberg, I do need to explain how it's ranked. The most popular / scary and best written stories are at the top, and as we go down, they become more obscure, worse written, and less scary, with the exception of a few good hidden gems. So with that being said, make sure to subscribe if you love Five Nights at Freddy's, and let's get into the FNAF Creepypasta Iceberg. The Hidden Lore series is by far one of the most popular FNAF creepypasta series ever made. The series follows many different stories that take place within the confines of the FNAF franchise. Each story is narrated as its own separate entry in the series, with the most popular and iconic one being the first episode, simply titled Hidden Lore. This story has an unreal sense of realism and uniqueness due to the way the stories are portrayed, with it not actually being a written story, but instead a set of YouTube videos with audio narration. Episode 1 starts off with Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica greeting the restaurant patrons, thanking them for being there, and asking them if they're enjoying their pizza. During this opening dialogue, there can be heard audible cries for help from the animatronics in a glitchy voice, but no one seems to notice. Shortly after this conversation ends between the animatronics, they begin to play music together, but as they start, the power seems to go out. The scene then transitions over the Pirate's Cove, with Foxy talking to the nearby children, and during his dialogue, we can hear the same audible glitches and cries for help, like how we could with the other animatronics. As Foxy continues to talk to the nearby children, a mom and her daughter walk over the Pirate's Cove, and the daughter is eager to play with Foxy, so she hops on the Pirate's Cove stage and starts touching him. An employee rushes over, begging her to get off of Foxy, but the little girl refuses. As the employee tells her mom to tell her daughter to get off of Foxy, disaster strikes, and all we can hear is a sound of a large crunch with a subsequent sound of blood splattering on the floor. As screams fill the building, the lifeless corpse is left stuck in Foxy's mouth. The story then fast forwards into the not so distant future, where a familiar phone ring can be heard. We can hear someone pick up the phone, and as they answer, they ask, hello? The phone call continues, with the manager of the restaurant and the night guard talking about the incident that just occurred with Foxy. The manager mentions that the animatronics may be acting weird this night, due to the engineers having to change some software because of the bite incident, and the night guard acknowledges this. As the conversation concludes, the night guard begins his night shift, but after some time, he begins to notice weird noises coming from inside the restaurant. As he leaves his office to go and investigate, he realizes that the noises are coming from the animatronics. As he approaches them, they begin talking like how they were on the stage, with the occasional glitches crying for help. As the guard begins to notice the strange glitching, he runs back into his office and tries to close the door, but it doesn't shut. As a last-ditch effort, he tries to call his boss for help, but the power goes off and Freddy begins to sing his famous jingle, and that's where episode 1 ends. Now, even though there is plenty more episodes in this series, I'd recommend you check them out on your own for the full experience, as each character is individually voiced by someone unique, and it really elevates the storytelling in a way I haven't really heard. Plus, almost every FNAF game has its own episode, and there is a full 1 hour long video of all the episodes combined on Mr. Creepypasta's channel. My Summer Job is a creepypasta about a college student, Mike Schmidt, looking for a job to have during his last summer in his hometown. The story begins with the protagonist looking for a job in the local newspaper to pay the bills, when he stumbles upon an ad for one of his favorite childhood pizzerias, Freddy Fazbear's. He calls to see what position is available and if it was still available, which it was. But as Mike looks closer, he realizes that they are only looking for a night guard. Mike was hesitant at first, but reluctantly agreed to the position, mainly because he loved to play place so much as a child. After giving the person his information, they told Mike that he could start this fall, which was odd because that was months away. Regardless of this, he decided to accept the position anyways. With enough money to last for the next couple of months, he realized he would be just fine as time passed. And as time did pass, it finally turned November, which meant his first shift for Freddy Fazbear's was right around the corner. Then the day finally came, his first shift. Mike headed to Freddy's, and as he arrived, he began to approach the building, but as he did, he came face to face with a man, which turned out to be the owner. Mike and the owner had a quick conversation, which the owner gave him some advice for the job and the keys to the doors. As Mike thanked him, he entered the building and he began immediately reminiscing about his childhood as a flood of nostalgia hit him. He explored the building for a bit until he began walking to his office, and as he approached the office, the sound of beeping grew louder, and as he finally entered, he realized it was a message machine. As he pressed the play button, he noticed that someone left a message for him about what to do as a night guard. And as the story continues, as nights pass, Mike begins to uncover various secrets about his once beloved pizzeria, with the main thing being that the animatronics are trying to kill him as the nights progress. On night 5 though, after Mike went through pure torture trying to survive against the animatronics throughout the first 4 nights, his boss was waiting for him outside. As Mike approached the building for his 5th shift, he greeted his boss and he was met with an insult from him. His boss confronted him about the previous night guard, which was now deceased. Mike admitted to his boss that he didn't know anything about the previous night guard and that he never met him, but the boss continued to interrogate him on the situation. The night prior, which was the 4th night, Mike got a very strange call that ended in a panic from the phone guy, with it abruptly cutting out with a loud scream. Mike knew the previous night guard was dead, but didn't want to believe it. As his boss continued to exclaim that he knew Mike wasn't innocent, his boss explained that there was no forced entry into the building and that all the evidence was pointing to Mike. His boss then left the pizzeria furiously. After this conversation, Mike wondered to himself if he should even finish the night, but he needed the money badly. So as Mike pondered for a moment, he hesitantly entered the building and started his shift. As Mike began his shift, he realized that the animatronics were more aggressive than the previous nights, and as the night continued, the animatronics began to act differently. They were making demonic noises, and on one of the cameras, he could see a Freddy Fazbear suit that was limp. As he looked closer for further inspection, he realized that there were eyeballs poking out of the face and that dried blood was seeping from the eyes. After seeing this, Mike blacked out, but shortly was awoken by loud banging on the door. Immediately checking the time and cameras, he realized it was 5:55 and that the animatronics were in its respective locations. So Mike started to think that his boss was at the door, so he proceeded to open it, and when he did, the same stuffed Freddy Fazbear suit was waiting outside. He immediately ran out of the building and drove away as fast as he could, planning to never go back. The story then continues 2 days later as Mike received a check-in notice saying he was fired. Last Call is a very simple creepypasta, basically just a different iteration of the FNAF 1 phone calls, with this story providing more information regarding Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the phone guy. The story begins at the start of the phone call, with phone guy going on a rant about the company as a whole, while also explaining why he took the job and the reason you were hired. As he is explaining everything, he shifts the conversation over to the animatronics and begins to talk about why the animatronics move at night. Phone guy explains that they are allowed to move at night so their servos wouldn't lock up, and when they weren't allowed to walk at night, the animatronics would begin to twitch and move in unreal ways from their servos malfunctioning. He talks about a time where one of the maintenance workers was trying to fix the animatronics because their necks were broken from the constant twitching they endured every night because of their locked servos. Phone guy explains that as the technician was fixing them, the technician almost lost one of their fingers because the animatronic twitched again. After this incident, they decided to let them roam at night, mainly to avoid any more accidents or malfunctions in their systems, which seemed to work. But one night after this feature was implemented, the morning staff stumbled upon the corpse of one of the previous night guards stuffed inside of a suit in the office. The story then ends with phone guy explaining to the night guard that he set up an ad in the paper for a replacement night guard, and begins to explain that the new night guard fell for his trap and he apologizes about what you are going to go through since you have taken the position. This story is arguably one of my favorites on this list, primarily because of the characters in this story, but due to it being over an hour long, and for fear of me missing too many details, I'm just gonna shortly summarize it for you. This creepypasta follows a story of a man looking for a job, and as he searches for one, he stumbles upon a night guard position at Freddy Fazbear's. He quickly takes interest, as Freddy's was a place he would go to a lot as a kid, and also his dad worked there, so he had fond memories of the place. After applying, he goes in for an interview and gets immediately immediately hired, mainly because the owner knew his father from the time when he had worked there. So the manager finishes up the application process, and that's when the narrator began checking out the place to get a feel for what it would be like to work there. And as he was exploring the restaurant, he realized that one of his favorite animatronics, Foxy, was out of order. The narrator then goes to ask the manager how long Foxy has been broken for, and the manager says it's been more than 10 years. The narrator looks at the manager in shock as he can't believe how long Foxy has been out of order for. He then asks the manager if he could fix Foxy up, with the manager reluctantly agreeing. The narrator immediately began to start fixing him up, as he did have some experience with engineering. Throughout the week as the night guard, he begins to notice that the animatronics move throughout the night, and during one of those nights, Foxy saves him from another animatronic attacking him. As Foxy takes him back to Pirate's Cove to hide him from the other animatronics, the two begin to talk about the night guard's childhood, and Foxy thanks him for fixing him up. As the story reaches its climax, the night guard is being attacked by all of the animatronics, when suddenly another backup Foxy attacks the night guard. This other Foxy was made to be used as a backup, but never was. So in retaliation, due to Foxy being so friendly with the night guard, the backup Foxy attacks the night guard brutally, which causes him to bleed out and die. Now, this is a very short summarization of the story, but it's such an amazing story, and you really just have to go listen to the full thing because I really can't do it justice here. There is so much more little details and plot elements that really make the build up to this climax so much better that I just couldn't explain. So I know it might not have sounded the best because of the summarization, but the full story is amazing. Four Nights at Freddy's is one of the longest creepypastas on this list. The story is about a guy who desperately needed money, and while searching for a job, he saw that a new pizzeria was opening up near him. So he decided to take this opportunity to apply for a job there. The narrator explains that he would have never have taken the job if it wasn't for the fact that he would be moved over to the day shift after his first 5 nights. Even though he was hesitant, he explained that he had no choice but to take the job and just decide to get it over with. He got hired almost instantly and was asked to start his first shift as soon as possible. So with this news, he arrived at the pizzeria a bit later for his first shift, and as he entered, he admired how new and polished everything looked. As he explored the building, he headed towards the office, and as he approached it, he described the office being the strangest office he's ever seen, describing it with one open big door and 2 vents on each side of the room. As he sat down, he saw a note giving him a quick rundown of what to do, so he read it and then proceeded to start his shift. As the first night continued, he read a newspaper, wound the music box, and occasionally checked the cameras until he heard the sound of heavy footsteps. Looking for an intruder, he checked the cameras but couldn't see anything, but instead noticed that Bonnie was missing. Quickly closing the camera, he turns on the flashlight to see nothing down the hallway until more footsteps were heard. As he turns on the flashlight again, he sees Bonnie standing down the hallway. The narrator found it amusing and was impressed by the technology, but by that time his shift was almost up and he wasn't worried about it. Plus, the note prepared him for this, with it explaining that the animatronics were allowed to move at night, so he didn't really care. But night 2 was different though. He settled into his same routine, but within a couple of hours he noticed that the animatronics were acting different. After checking the rest of the rooms on the cameras that he didn't look at the night prior, he realized that Bonnie and Chica were missing from their stage. Checking the cameras more thoroughly, he notices that Bonnie was staring directly into one of the cameras. The narrator was panicked by this, and he became paranoid for the rest of the night, consistently checking the cameras and listening for footsteps. But as some time passed, he did hear footsteps again and immediately checked the hallway with his flashlight. He could see that it was Chica this time and not Bonnie, but that's when the flashlight began to flicker, and during this, Chica vanished. After this occurred, he was too distracted by it and realized he forgot to wind the music box. He then quickly wound the music box, and then as some more time passed, he heard more footsteps again. So expecting the same thing, he turned on the flashlight and he saw Foxy in the hallway. But Foxy stopped right in his tracks before he proceeded to run back down the hallway. The night guard found this weird, but it hit 6 AM, so he didn't care. Night 3 began normally, with the first hour being relatively calm, so due to it being so relaxed, the night guard decided to go use the bathroom quickly before he continued his shift. After he entered the bathroom and one of its subsequent stalls, he proceeded to use the bathroom. But then shortly after, he started to hear a noise that sounded a lot like the bathroom door being opened. But then he heard those same footsteps again, which confirmed his suspicion that it was one of the animatronic. But then an eerie childlike moan could be heard right after these footsteps, followed by a loud bang of one of the stall doors being forcibly opened. As every stall door was kicked open, the night guard ducked onto the floor to avoid detection from the animatronic, which happened to be Withered Freddy. Realizing that the animatronic was being hostile and realizing that he hadn't wound up the music box in a while, he decided to make a break back to his office while Freddy was distracted. Narrowly escaping, he ran back to his office and immediately began to check the cameras and maintain the music box. And a couple hours later, when it was his time to leave, he was attacked by Toy Chica on his way out, which he was able to narrowly avoid by running out of the front door and locking it behind him. Night 4 was very different from the rest, immediately beginning in chaos, with multiple animatronics attacking the guard throughout the night, and with all of the stress he was being put through, he passed out at 3 AM. He was then awoken, restrained in a chair in a strange mysterious room, with Toy Bonnie approaching him with a buzzsaw. Toy Bonnie said this to the night guard: "He makes us do this." But the night guard began begging for his life, and Bonnie swung the buzzsaw over his head and on top of his arm. Blood immediately started to pour everywhere, and he began to lose consciousness, and before he passed out, the last thing he could heard was the sound of his arm hitting the floor. Awakening again, he couldn't feel his arm, and as he looked over, a metal arm was in place of where his arm used to be. But before he could process it all, Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica began to start the buzzsaw again to take off the other arm. But before they could do that, something knocked down the door. It was Foxy, and Foxy began to attack Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica, disabling them. As Foxy helped the night guard escape, Freddy walked into the room and blocked the exit and proceeded to pick up the buzzsaw that was laying on the floor. The night guard then used his robotic arm to attack Freddy, which worked very effectively. After this, the night guard ran out of the building and went straight to the police station and explained everything. The building was shut down that night, but as paramedics arrived to the scene, they immediately tried to remove the metal arm, but it somehow became infused into the night guard's flesh and wasn't able to be taken out. It's Me is a creepypasta that explains all of the events seen in FNAF 2's minigames and explains in depth the events that led up to the bite of 87. The story starts from the perspective of a little kid leaving the pizzeria because they were terrified of Fredbear, but in the midst of leaving the building, someone driving down the street next to the child pulled up next to them and abducted them. The story then proceeds to talk about how this event impacted the restaurant's reputation and how it was forever tainted after this. But that was until the owners decided to scrap the Spring Bonnie and Fred Sharp animatronics in replacement for Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy. After settling to a new location, everyone seemed to enjoy the place, seemingly forgetting about the troubled past of the last pizzeria. But shortly after the opening of the new location, a seemingly familiar car was seen, but no one noticed it because everyone was too preoccupied with a little girl's birthday party. As the party was happening, many of the parents weren't in the room, as they all planned to follow Foxy into the room to surprise the children. As the parents were eagerly waiting for Foxy to come and surprise all the kids, Foxy was finally ready. As the parents and staff followed Foxy towards the party room, they finally arrived, but as they all entered the room, no kids were to be seen except just pools of blood. The story then fast forwards into the future, now taking us to the FNAF 2 pizzeria location. We are given an explanation and are led through the journey it took to get the new pizzeria opened, with it being described to us all of the changes and quirks that were made to keep the place safe. But due to a minor incident around the restaurant's opening involving one of the day guards being grabbed by Withered Freddy, police were called to make sure everything was okay and that no one was harmed. But as they investigated, they found the corpses of the missing children from that birthday party all of those years ago, and discovering that someone used the Spring Bonnie suit to unalive them. After figuring this out, the location was set to temporarily close, but they were scheduled to host one last birthday party the next day. So during the party, one of the toy animatronics scared a little kid away from the party area, which led him to run into the same room as the puppet was. One of the day guards took notice of this and followed after him. And as he entered the room, he began asking the child what was wrong. But the guard then started to slowly notice that the music box wasn't playing any music. And as he turned to look at the music box, he began to notice the puppet rising out of it before shortly attacking him. This story is fairly short, so I am going to read it in full. You know, parents are always finding new ways to entertain or enrich their children. In fact, the earliest years are the most important in a child's life when it comes to developing their young mind. This was no different for me. My mom would always take me to the arcades, complete with all sorts of top-of-the-line games, or the parks with the jungle gyms that were always scolding hot from being in the sun all day. There weren't too many options to choose from, but for what they were, those are what made up my fondest childhood memories. As a treat for my 7th birthday, my mom took me to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. It was supposed to be a fun little place, from what I can remember, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life, or something like that. It looked really promising. To be honest with you, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited about going there. The pizza was what you'd expect, lazily put together and didn't quite taste right, but you didn't go over there for the food. You went to see Freddy Fazbear and his gang of colorful friends, Bonnie the bunny and Chica the chicken. There was Foxy too, and he lived at Pirates Cove. Thinking back on it now, the animatronics were pretty good for the time. They had full body movement when singing on stage, and even Foxy moved around quite a bit on his little pirate ship. In fact, I remember that after a few songs, Freddy and his friends would come off the stage and walk around interacting with the kids. They would walk up to the kids and say things like, "How's the pizza?" or "Are you having fun?" I remember that Foxy always said, "It's me, I'm gonna get ya." It was kinda cute. To keep the kids entertained, there would be little games they'd play, like Follow the Freddy, which was just follow the leader, or Foxy's Treasure Hunt, where kids would be given small trinkets and Foxy would chase after them like a game of tag. I remember I had finished my slice of pizza and asked if I could play the treasure hunt game with Foxy. My mom said it was okay, so I got up and one of the workers gave me a tiny palm-sized treasure chest. I was actually really excited because Foxy was my favorite. Me and about 6 other kids were given small treasures, and that's when Foxy jumped off of Pirates Cove and he yelled, "It's me, I'm gonna get ya." And that's when we all scrambled. It was great fun. I looked over my shoulders and saw Foxy chasing around the other kids, and at one point he almost got me. Boy, Foxy was fast. I didn't quite know why at the time, but while I was in the middle of playing the treasure hunt game, my mom lifted me up abruptly and carried me swiftly towards the exit. She said things like, "We've got to go right now, and we should have never have come here." I'd never heard such urgency in her voice before. I thought that maybe it was because some kids started crying when Foxy got him. They had screamed really loudly and started sobbing. I remember that a bunch of parents rushed over. There was all sorts of commotions and noise, but I was too busy having fun to notice that anything was wrong. But now that I think about it, I do remember that as my mom carried me through the exit, I saw Foxy standing above the body of a kid he had caught. He was staring at me with crimson liquid dripping from his teeth. The Bite of 87 is a creepypasta that goes into detail about the events that led up to the Bite of 87, but instead of it taking place in the FNAF 2 pizzeria, it takes place in the FNAF 1 location instead. The story starts with the narrator explaining why a night guard was needed in the location, and exposes to the audience that it wasn't to keep the burglars out, but instead to keep the animatronics in, explaining that night guards were needed in order to make sure the animatronics weren't damaged or stolen over the nights, as the pizzeria didn't have the money to replace them or to shut them down to fix them. With this information given to us, the narrator begins to explain how during one fateful day in 1987, Foxy began having technical errors and broke down 4 times in the hour prior, but they kept him up and running in order to not lose profits. During his performance that day, he was still experiencing issues, mainly with his voice box and balance. As he walked around stage, his legs creaked loudly and he began to act strangely to the children. With many of the kids sitting on the floor in front of the stage, they all listened eagerly to his stories, not noticing him continue to malfunction. But that was until Foxy let out a groan and froze, losing his balance and falling off of the stage, landing on a child and taking their frontal lobe as he hit the floor. Chaos immediately ensued, and many parents ran over along with staff to get the animatronic off of the child, with some calling 911 and some evacuating the building. The story then goes over to a conversation with the owner and a mechanic, with them arguing about the incident, complaining to each other that they shouldn't have let Foxy perform due to his previous malfunctions and so on. The narrator then begins to explain the aftermath of the situation, stating that the Pirates Cove area was immediately closed and that Foxy wasn't allowed to play shows permanently, and that Foxy wasn't allowed to play any more shows except during the night. This story describes the events of a teenager babysitting their baby cousin at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza when things start to go very wrong. The story is very long, but it is very simple to understand, so I will be quickly summarizing it as well. The narrator and his little cousin Alex went to Freddy Fazbear's because Alex's parents were busy that day, so they went to Freddy's to watch the band, play the arcade games, and etc. But during one of the various shows played by the band, the narrator noticed that the animatronics were staring directly at him and weren't moving. He started to feel uneasy and began to panic, so he ran over to a worker to ask what's happening with the animatronics. As he began explaining to the worker what was going on, the animatronics then weren't looking at him as the stage curtain was closed by now. But then Alex ran up to him, interrupting his conversation with the worker, asking for his phone to call his mom. So the narrator gave Alex his phone, and then Alex ran into the arcade to proceed with the conversation with his mom. As a couple hours passed, it was finally closing, so Alex and him began to get ready to leave, but just as they were heading out, Alex had to use the restroom. As they proceeded to the bathroom, Alex entered and the narrator waited for Alex to use the restroom outside, but minutes passed and he still wasn't done. And by that time, many staff members were already out of the building, and he was sure that him and Alex were the only ones left in there. As some more time passed, he checked the bathroom to realize Alex wasn't in there anymore, and noticed that his phone was missing as well. The narrator then proceeded towards the front door to leave and get help, but that was until he noticed that there was a metal door blocking his exit. He realized he was trapped in there and he couldn't leave. As the story progresses some more, the animatronics began to move and started to try and kill the narrator. The story goes in depth, explaining how he was surviving the night while also still trying to find Alex. But some hours later into the night, while fighting to survive, the narrator managed to find a crowbar, which he used to break a window and escape. After the narrator contacted the police after escaping, they went inside to investigate, finding out that the animatronics were all back in their original positions and Alex wasn't anywhere to be seen, and they haven't found Alex to this day. This is arguably one of the most unique stories on this list, completely changing the FNAF story and flipping it on its head. Even though some parts of it are fairly odd, if you allow yourself to ignore those strange moments, I'd say this story is very enjoyable. This story explains a fan-made rendition of how Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria came to be, and follows along many key moments in the FNAF story. It begins with a brief summary explaining to the reader how Robert Fosworth was beginning his journey in the restaurant business, naming his first restaurant Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Taking inspiration from other attractions that had animatronics as entertainment, he decided to create his own band of animatronics for his restaurant so that it would appeal to all ages. To make his animatronics the best, he asked his technicians to make the most advanced animatronics with state-of-the-art AI, which was more money than he thought it would originally be. So the company making the animatronics for him mentioned to him that they had an experimental AI that was way cheaper that they could use instead. Robert accepted this deal immediately, and he was too blinded by his vision for the restaurant to see any downsides to this. Robert accepted this deal immediately, as he was too blinded by his vision for the restaurant to see any downsides to this. The technicians have been working on this experimental AI, which involved them testing how the human brain could work with mechanical nerves, and if both could coincide together and have the brain control the endoskeleton of the animatronics. And by doing this, these animatronics now had a free will mode and a normal AI mode, and with the flick of a switch, you could switch between these modes. Months later, these models were finally sent to Robert, and as he began to activate them, the animatronics looked at him perplexed. As they looked at their surroundings and body, Bonnie asked, "What have you done to me?" in a human-like voice. Robert switched on the normal AI mode to avoid this strange behavior and continued setting up the building for opening. Sometime later, the restaurant finally opens to become a success, but shortly after, Robert passes away and gives the restaurant to his son Jeremy. Jeremy had no interest in the restaurant, so he sold it to another company, and shortly after selling it, the place began to get taken care of less, and the free roam mode was activated on the animatronics, so the staff didn't have to deal with them as much. But due to the neglect of the restaurant, 5 children were murdered by Freddy Fazbear due to his anger of being put into the suit. But another incident occurred right after this, where Foxy also attacked one of the CEOs of the company for the same reasons, which caused the company to sell off the restaurant. Luckily, someone else bought the restaurant right after this, with the new owner changing many things to the restaurant. The new owner only set the animatronics to roam at night, which prompted them to hire night guards so the animatronics wouldn't leave the building. But shortly after, the place was closed due to the former security guard, Mike Schmidt, suing the new owner for his life being endangered. As police investigated, they found all the corpses and remains hidden within the suits. In the Aftermath is a story that shows us what really happened in Phone Guy's final call from FNAF 1, giving us an in-depth look of his thoughts while recording the messages for the next security guard, while also explaining what happened after his death and what happened to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the aftermath of his passing. The story begins with Phone Guy putting in his resignation, but his boss needed him to work one last week, just so they can find another night guard to take his place after he left. So Phone Guy reluctantly agreed and went in for his final week, starting his shift. shift. As he began his shift, he started to think about his replacement and how he wouldn't know what he'd be getting himself into. So the phone guy eagerly picked up the phone and recorded his first message. The story continues as phone guy records the rest of his messages for the next night guard, making multiple voice recordings explaining various things in depth. But as he is recording these messages, the animatronics are starting to become very aggressive and are trying to get into his office. But that was until phone guy noticed that he was using a lot of his power while recording these messages, which eventually led to him running out of power and getting attacked by the animatronics. The story then switches over to a news broadcast explaining that one of the animatronics escaped the building during the night, with the news broadcaster going into detail how there was no one to prevent the animatronics from leaving the building because the night guard had seemingly quit. The story then moves into the aftermath of the phone guy's death, with it being explained to the reader how Freddy's was due to close because 5 children were found murdered in the back room, and how it really affected business for the restaurant, with it also being mentioned that the animatronics were continuously breaking down and malfunctioning, which led the manager to officially announce the closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The Bite of 83 is one of the most iconic FNAF moments in the entire franchise, and this story decides to take that event and show the story to us from the perspective of a bystander at the pizzeria. The story begins, narrated by a little kid going to Fredbear's family diner with their parents. As they enter the building, they can see a young boy crying while underneath a table, clearly terrified to be there. So the narrator went up to the crying child and asked him what was wrong, but he didn't get a response from him at all, so the narrator just went back to his parents. Later on throughout the day, the narrator noticed that 4 teenagers all wearing animatronic masks started teasing the child, but with the narrator being afraid of the teenagers, he didn't bother snitching and telling his parents about the teens, afraid that he would get bullied too for it. But that was when the narrator noticed that the teens were teasing the crying child by putting him closer and closer to Fredbear, until they finally put the crying child's head in the Fredbear's mouth, killing him as the mouth shut on his head. This is where we start to get into some of the more bad creepypastas, with bad writing and etc. But this story is very short, so I'm just gonna read it in full. The year was 1987. Freddy Fazbear's had reopened. I decided to go. I was 12, so the animatronic shows were kind of dumb. Balloon Boy was stupid, Kid Cove was only for little kids, but one area I liked, the puppets area. He gave the prizes, nothing else. His area was not quiet because it had a faint music box in the background that always calmed me down. The only downside was that the puppet was creepy. He had an odd smiling face and never said a word. He only laughed when he gave kids prizes. But back to what I was saying. It was a great place and had delicious pizza and fun games. But sadly, one time I accidentally got locked in the pizzeria. I walked around trying to find a spare key or something to break the door with, and I found a room labeled parts and services. I knew old animatronic pieces were in there. They might break a door, so I opened it. It was dark, but luckily I had a flashlight with me. I turned it on, and I found a loose arm on an old Bonnie the Bunny model, so I ripped it off. I had trouble walking back to the exit, and I stumbled into the puppet's area. The music box was playing, and I found a key. I threw the arm behind me, knowing that the key would be easier to use, but the arm fell in the music box, and the music stopped playing. The puppet then rose out of the box. He said, "Let's play," and ran after me. I was quicker, but just by a bit, so I quickly unlocked the main door, got outside, and locked it up again. Ran outside, and locked up the door again. I ran home, crying. I got back home haunted by the nightmare that forever stayed in my mind. This story is also not the best, with the video narration of it not being very understandable as well, so due to the story's difficult to understand nature, I'm going to be doing a very quick summary of this story. This creepypasta is about the narrator sneaking into the brand new Fazbear's Fright attraction because why not? As they explored the closed attraction, they stumbled upon a locked room, which they then break into as well, and as they enter the room, they hear a loud thud. As the narrator turned towards the sound, he saw a destroyed animatronic that was twitching on the ground, but as he went to leave the room, the lights went out and began flickering. And as he was trying to find his way out, he noticed that the animatronic was now blocking the exit to the room. As the lights went dark again, the narrator heard another thud and realized that the animatronic fell into the ground, presumably running out of power. As he ran for the exit, he tripped over what he thought was a human head, and after seeing this, he passed out, but miraculously woke up outside of the building safe. I mean, that's not the full story, but like, it's kind of the whole premise behind it. It's not the best. It doesn't really make too much sense. So, no, this is the best I can do. This story takes place immediately after FNAF 6, where William Afton was finally put to rest during the fire that finally killed him. The story is told in an outside perspective, explaining what happened to William afterwards, and it starts with William floating in a black abyss, realizing he was finally dead after all these years. He was joyful, realizing he wasn't actually in hell, but instead a weird limbo-like place. He began laughing hysterically, realizing Henry killed him for nothing, as he wasn't suffering like how Henry hoped he would have after his death. But then a strange light appeared in the abyss, and from the light came a small box which dropped into his hands. He proceeded to open the box, which seemingly teleported him out of the abyss, but into a heavenly-like realm where he could see a man walking on the clouds. William asked if he was God, and the man responded back to him listing off all of his crimes, telling him that he made a special place just for him. William seemingly teleported back into the abyss, where 3 words appeared in front of him: Ultimate Custom Night. But before he could do anything, the words disappeared, and God said that that was actually Michael's personal hell instead, not his. As God apologized, new words appeared in front of Afton, them saying Ultimate Punishment Night. This story is rough, but it's quick, so I'm gonna read it in full as well. My parents were bringing me the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with David and Joey. When we got there, Golden Freddy was already out on the dance zone. David, Joey, and I ran over immediately because we love Golden Freddy. He was throwing tickets around near the prize counter and said he had more in the back. He went to get them as we collected the remaining ones. When he took a while to come back, the other children went away. But we had just gotten there and he left so soon, so Joey, David, and I went to go find him. We entered one of the rooms and then the door closes. We turn around to see Golden Bonnie. Joey loves Golden Bonnie, so he went in for a hug, and he got so excited that after we hugged him, he went into shock and fainted. He must have had ketchup on him because it started pooling around him. But then everything went cold and my mom told me to keep my jacket with me. But then I see David fall over too, and the Bonnie picks him up and the lights go off. Then I hear metal clinging together. Now for this layer, most of the stories are fairly short, so I'm just going to be reading every single one of them in full. Plus, some of these you need to read fully in order to even understand them, so let's just get into it. It was only a few days after the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 4 when it happened. I was checking scottgames.com looking for a new teaser image. Sure enough, the image of Plushtrap was still there. Terrible things come in small packages. It hadn't changed. I hit refresh to see if there was a new image. After I pressed the button, the screen went blank. There was nothing on the screen at all. It was like my monitor was asleep. I moved my mouse to try and get it to react, but nothing happened. After what felt like an hour of waiting, I saw something flash on the monitor, something that looked a bit like Fredbear. I didn't get a good look at it, but immediately following the jump scares thing was a blue screen. What the hell? I said to myself. I forced the computer to shut down and I restarted it. There were all kinds of 8s and 7s flashing by, almost like someone had hacked my computer. I could have sworn I saw Golden Freddy flash by a few times. I even heard "It's me" being spelled out on my speakers. I tried muting the sound, but it didn't work. It just made it louder. I tried opening Steam, but my screen said "you can't" for about 2 seconds. Then, out of nowhere, all of the icons on my desktop disappeared. Recycling bin gone, FNAF 4 gone, Team Fortress 2 all gone. Even the taskbar disappeared. Everything went black. 5 minutes later, the screen was tinted red, almost like the cat dose from Spooky's house jump scares. There were still hundreds of 8s and 7s flashing by, but there was one thing that was different. I didn't hear static anymore. I heard distorted church bells. 12 bells. I looked at the clock. Just as the bells predicted, it was midnight. I looked at my monitor again. There was a single icon. It said SC877 Games. I was hesitant to click on it because I wasn't sure what would happen. Eventually, I clicked on it because why the hell not? I was nervous. It took a while to load, but then the window went full screen and I saw something absolutely terrifying. It was a close-up of Fredbear's unholy face. I nearly screamed when I saw it, mostly because all I heard in the background was Nightmare's jump scare audio. That played for hours. For a few minutes, I just sat there. I was horrified. Eventually, I asked myself a question. What is going on here? At that point, I didn't think anything could be scarier. Why? Because Fredbear replied to me.
Keep telling yourself that this is in your head, boy.
Fredbear said. What in? I'm sorry, but did you just say something?
Indeed I did, mortal. I am not real, but not fake. I can hear every word you say. I am living yet unliving. For I am the Fredbear virus you have been infected.
Why are you doing this to me? Can't you go find another guy and infect their computer?
If only you knew. If only you knew the pain of being alive yet dead, but dead yet alive at the same time. It is painful. This is your nightmare. Accept it.
With that, Fredbear jump scared me. I shut my computer down and went to bed, thinking about what he had said, dead yet alive. The next morning, I was afraid to turn on my computer. I was afraid that Fredbear was waiting for me, so I turned my computer on, and I found a red screen. There was all kinds of weird source code, 8s and 7s scattered everywhere. Fredbear_virus_exe repeated multiple times, and a final message that read, "You can't escape death, whether it be at the hands of a killer, in the mouth of a beast, or in the comfort of your gurney. Death will find you. You have been warned. This computer will now shut down entirely." After that, my laptop shut down forever. It never reactivated. I tried recharging it, but it was a no-go. There was no going back. This is your classic EXE creepypasta. Of course I had to put one on this list. So anyways, here it is. FNAF 3 just came out, and I've been a fan of the series ever since the beginning, especially after everyone was making theories about the story. I wanted to play FNAF 3 when it came out, but I never really had the money, so I was looking for the game online, but all I could get was links to buy it. The only links I were finding were for a website called Pirate Bay that was using a separate program, so I tried installing the program to get the game, and it worked for a while. But instead of it being called FNAF 3, it was called Springtrap. I guess it was to make things more sneakier, but I don't know. When I loaded up the game, it only had Springtrap on the menu, and I knew who he was because of all the theories online. But his eyes were staring at me, not the cursor, but at me. So I loaded into the game and I was a security guard, but instead of being in the security room, I was at the main door of the place. Text faded onto the screen saying escape, and I heard things fall behind me. I turned around and nothing was there, so I tried opening the door, but it was locked and needed a key. I went into the first room I saw, and it was a closet. There was nothing in there, but as I turned around, Springtrap was standing behind me, staring at me. He then walked away, and I exited the room to check the others, and I couldn't find the key. So I headed back to the main door, and Springtrap was standing there with a key around his neck, and he took it off and gave it to me. As I opened the door to walk out, he said, "I always come back," and he pulls me back in and starts tearing me to shreds. Now this story has a very unique idea behind it, but the writing just isn't the best, so let's begin. You probably know a horror game franchise called Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Well, there was rumored to be an unreleased game which was claimed to be the first Five Nights at Freddy's game in the franchise back in 2013. It was believed that Scott wanted to make a real horror game, unlike the other ones and like the other horror games like Slender, Amnesia, and Outlast, but then realized what mistake he made and stopped. The time I found the download and played it was in December 13, 2014, while I was messing around with Inspect Elements in Scott's website. I decided to type in scottgames.com/offlineexe for some random reason, but when I pressed enter, a download appeared titled Five Nights at Freddy's Zeros. I was confused by why Scott would add a download in such a random link, but I was pretty proud of myself for being the first to discover it. When I clicked on it, it took me to a menu which was the same menu as Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but the V031 was gone, and the Scott Cawthon 2014 in the title were replaced with Scott Cawthon 2013 and Five Nights at Freddy's 0. I hit new game. It didn't take me to an intro with the newspaper stating that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza needed a new night guard. In fact, it just skipped straight to the game. The security office didn't look very interesting, a gray blank wall with no posters and a hallway in the middle, and a table with a puppet plushie which seemed withered and had a cracked mask with blood running from his eye holes and organs bursting from the chest. Then there was a phone call. Hello? Well, if you're hearing this, your chances are death will come for you. You made a poor career choice. Death will come for you? What kind of employee would say that? I decided to open the camera. I realized that there was only two cameras, Cam 8 and Cam -6. I flipped to Cam 8 to find that Golden Freddy was standing in what appeared to be a child's bedroom with a realistic baby in a crib behind him, crying. The strange thing about Golden Freddy is that the jaw was missing and he had bloodshot eyes. I switched to Cam -6, which had no signal. I checked the hall light to find Golden Freddy, again but with no jaw, but now with blank soulless eyes. I tried to close the door, finding out that the door button wouldn't work as it looked like blood was spilled on it. Of course it wouldn't work. Why would a door button covered in blood work anyways? I checked the hall light once more to see if Golden Freddy was gone. When I checked it, it went black for a second and then went back to normal, except the door was absent and that the puppet's tears and lipstick were gone and they were washed off. This is how the story was written, guys. I know it's a little confusing, but I'm reading it as it was written. I checked the cameras again. This time there was a new camera, Cam 0. I checked Cam 0, finding that it was a non-8-bit recreation ending of FNAF 3, where Purple Man gets killed inside a spring trap, but not 3D rendered. In fact, it looked looked like as if it happened in real life. In fact, the ghosts of the 5 children looked like they were burned alive. That was when I heard a scream. In fact, it sounded very realistic. I jumped out of my seat. I scrambled to get back on my feet and checked cam 8. When I checked it, something was different. The baby that was in the crib was absent and Golden Freddy was soaked in blood. Blood drained from my face and was refilled with dread. A dread that Golden Freddy would look at me. So I quickly switched to cam -6. When I saw cam -6, I was horrified. What I saw was a picture of a child inside an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, lying down with the same details as the puppet plushie in the office. Cracked open head, bleeding eye sockets, and organs bursting from the chest. But unlike the puppet plushie, other organs were spilling out of the mouth. That was a full sentence, by the way. And behind him were 2 legs with purple pants on that were covered in blood, possibly the Purple Man. I almost vomited at this point, so I closed down the monitor, only triggering Golden Freddy's jump scare. Not the same one Golden Freddy would use in this version. Golden Freddy actually had teeth, showing like the poster of Golden Freddy you would see very rarely, including the slowed down version of the screen for 1 second until my computer crashed and went blue screen. At that point, what I saw from the corner of my eye, what looked like a bloody jawless Golden Freddy. I quickly looked at where he was standing, but I saw nothing. I looked back at my computer screen, which was still the BSOD. I tried restarting, but I got the same blue screen, meaning I had to reboot my computer. This time it booted up as normal. That's when I got to the Windows 7 startup sound. In the middle of that, the same Golden Freddy jump scare appeared, but unlike the other one, it didn't cause my computer to go blue screen. In fact, it stayed even after the screen. I tried shutting down my computer by holding down the power button, but it didn't work. I waited for it to end. It stayed for 2 minutes, then it finally went to desktop. This time, there was a notepad on my desktop. It had no name. I opened it only to find it said, "Can you guess who I am?" Blood drained from my face. I deleted the text file and emptied my recycle bin. Last night, I was about to enter my bedroom. I saw the same figure running through the hallway. Yeah, that story was ooh, that story hurt to read. That one was bad. Bad story. Not hating. It was probably a young child who wrote it, but that one was a mess to read. Anyways, let's get to the next one. We're finally onto the last entry of this iceberg, so I hope you guys are excited. Now, this one has an interesting backstory behind it. As I was researching for this video, I stumbled upon a forum post on some miscellaneous website which I can't remember the name. There was a story on it talking about the FNAF themed haunted house attraction in Las Vegas called the Fright Dome, where the user explained a strange incident that occurred to him when he visited the attraction. The user began his story by explaining his love for FNAF and how during opening weekend for the attraction, him and a group of friends went to it. The user proceeded to go on a side tangent, explaining that during the opening weekend, Scott Cawthon was actually at the attraction and would take pictures with fans at the end of the attraction near the exit, which is why he wanted to go so badly. As him and his friends arrived to the attraction, the user described it as being packed and the lines were insanely long, but after around an hour of waiting, they were finally inside. As they walked through the haunted house, the user explained how he began to have a bad gut feeling, not from being scared or anything, but from what he described as an overwhelming feeling of dread. He shook it off and just assumed it was from him being scared. But eventually, they all finished the haunted house and entered the final room, where Scott Cawthon was taking pictures with fans. The user described the room as a lobby-like room, where you could buy merchandise from the attraction and wait for your friends if they got separated or were put in separate groups. The user was ecstatic to meet Scott, but his friends weren't. So his friends left the haunted house to go get food at a nearby restaurant. So the user told his friends to go to the restaurant without him and that he would meet them there, because there was yet again a long line to take pictures with Scott. He entered the line and went to go on his phone to pass some time and to get his camera ready when he realized his phone was dead. And his friends already left, so he couldn't use their phones or contact him to come back. He wanted to run outside to go get them, but once you left the haunted house, you couldn't come back in unless you bought another ticket to go through the whole haunted house again. So he decided to just wait in line and hopefully get something along the lines of an autograph from Scott. As the user finally got in front of the line and was face to face with Scott, he asked him if he can get his autograph instead, since his phone had died. Scott agreed and reached for a backpack on the ground, which the user assumed was Scott's. As Scott dug through the backpack, he could see what looked like to be snacks, notebooks, and some other necessities for the long night of pictures Scott had ahead of him. But that was until a young child ran up to Scott, causing him to drop his backpack. Security escorted the kid to the back of the line, and the user proceeded to help Scott pick up the stuff that fell out of his backpack. Scott thanked him, and still distracted by what just happened, Scott nonchalantly grabbed one of the various notebooks he had, and ripped a piece of paper out and signed it for the user. Scott said thank you to the user and told him to have a safe night. The user thanked Scott as well, and began to walk out of the attraction, and he looked back to give give Scott one last look, but as he did, Scott was staring at his notebook confused, like he just accidentally did something he wasn't supposed to. But the user was already out of the building and began heading to the restaurant his friends were at. The story then gets weird here, as the user then fast forwards the story a bit to when he got back home. As he got home, he went to take a clear look at the autograph, and he noticed that the notebook page had writing on the back of it. The user thought that Scott must have ripped out a page from the wrong notebook, but the user was so eager to see if there was any concepts for a new FNAF game on the back of the paper, he turned the page, but was shocked to see that everything was written backwards and was written in a dark red ink. So the user put his phone on the charger and turned it on to take an image of the paper, and when he did, he flipped the image so the handwriting was no longer backwards. The writing was described to be Latin, and when translated, the user explained how the writing seemed to be a continuation from a previous page of the notebook, with the page seemingly talking about the devil, with some sentences being written in a completely different handwriting style, almost like it was two people taking turns writing the sentences. The user was able to tell which handwriting was Scott's from the autograph, but the other handwriting was so messy it almost looked scribbled on. The user then asked people in the forum how to contact Scott so he could give the paper back to him, but no one responded back to the user at all. As I went to look for the story, I couldn't find it, so I decided to share it here in this video for you guys, so maybe you guys could help me find the truth behind what the page meant and why Scott had it. Anyways, that's the end of the FNAF Creepypasta Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe I'll make a part 2 in the future.
The video's over, partners. On screen is a few other ones you guys can watch, but yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. On screen is a few other videos that are related to this one that you guys will also enjoy.